Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I am back again with yet another session on mentoring SMPs. Your board is very keen to ensure that we mentor SMPs and take them at a level when they are able to provide value-added service to the clients, to the regulators, to the government, and all across board, all people who intend to have the services of internal auditors. The chartered accountancy profession has to lead this practice. We are very keen and therefore we are holding so many series. You remember we had a 4-day series on internal audit standards. Each and every standard was very intensely discussed, threadbare analysis of all those standards, where we have to put them and how we have to put them. Everything was taken into account. And today we come again with 3 more topics. So I'll give my keynote address as well as the introduction of the members. So I start with my keynote address. After that, I'll give the introduction of my members. So please permit me to put my PPT. Just a second. Today's webinar is on mentoring SMPs internal audit. We need to handhold SMPs in effective conduct of internal audit in large corporates. Yes, now SMPs are doing a lot of work for small and medium corporates and even for large corporates. But I want that the larger initiative, the larger membership goes into the larger membership of the profession, which we call them small and medium practitioners, start servicing the internal audit in large corporates. And Madam Geeta would be taking this topic, the first topic. Now, what are the business challenges for large corporates? Yes, the large corporates need to design systems and processes. And it involves many aspects such as team building, lines of reporting, decision-making procedures, communication channels, organizational design and redesign, which helps the organization achieve their well-defined goals. We as chartered accountants can help them. We as internal auditors can help them in this initiative. There is always a lack of direction or vision. There's spearheaded direction or vision. So a strong vision helps to get organizational goals for the corporates, and we get it done. We have to work in market competition. We have to compete with all the participants, and therefore the corporates need to defend your market position and build the competitive edge. We as SMPs, small practicing chartered accountants, add the management in getting it. Successful ventures need a healthy balance of both profitability and growth in order to thrive and rise above the rest. In this cutthroat competition, we help the corporates in balancing quality and ensuring that they have a perpetual growth. Internal audit function is largely a management function, all of you know. It is insightful, forward-looking, and is not afraid to go beyond preserving current assets. Instead, we need to now focus on creating value on the departmental, divisional, or organizational level. Every facet of the organization needs to be strengthened. The internal auditors need to implement a stronger use of company-wise data mining and analysis tools, and a more effective and efficient coordination and cooperation with other assurance functions will add lot of value to the entire initiative. The internal auditors must strive to migrate to more advanced stages of maturity, may it be technology, may it be system analysis, may it be forensic studies. This includes involving the basic auditing processes and skills towards an approach of creating value and bringing insights for an organization. And let me tell you that by establishing a connect with the company's management, the internal auditor emerges as a trusted business advisor, the person who identifies risks and control issues and suggests solutions. All of you are well aware that the role of internal audit has grown over the years. Now we are reporting to the board or to the audit committee, whatever the case may be. So internal audit and large corporate clients need chartered accountants to serve that purpose. The second is the internal audit in startup environment. You are aware that startup environments have increased a lot. So in today's fast evolving risk environment, organizations need a combination of methods to adequately protect themselves. In addition to scheduled formal statutory audits, organizations should conduct internal audits so that they're able to identify vulnerabilities and understand their compliance and security posture on a continuous basis. What are the problems? What stops them from doing this? Yes, there is incomplete and ineffective processes and policies. Policies need to match. You need to plug all the loopholes that may come in. You need to tackle with the existing and emerging competition and business trends. Yes, you have to stay ahead with the entire competing crowd. You need to identify and respond to existing and emerging business risks. You have to find the business risks and financial risks, and you have to formalize a method so that in future also if you are able to identify any risk that can be mitigated. What do you need in internal audit of startups? Assessing viability of the new business. You need to tell them the viability of the new business. What are the areas which needs a special focus? You have to understand that it is a continuous process improvement. We need to understand. There's a difference between a chartered accountant and another professional. And I'm reminded of a couplet which a CS says to another professional. He says, कुछ तो फर्क है तेरी और मेरी तालीम में. कुछ तो फर्क है तेरी और मेरी तालीम में. तूने उस्तादों से सीखा है, तूने उस्तादों से सीखा है, मैंने हालातों से सीखा है. The English version. There's a lot of difference in our training processes. The CS says to another professional, you have learned from teachers, from bosses, and have learned from circumstances. It becomes very true when it comes to internal audit of startups. You advise the startups so that they can move ahead in a larger perspective. You need to identify risk so that the investor's interest is safeguarded. You need to plan future operations and ensure growth. And more importantly, you need to provide solutions by building effective control environment. The third is the risk response strategy. Now, what is the risk response strategy? How you set up your risk appetite? Risk appetite is the overall level of risk which an organization is willing to accept in pursuance of its goals and objectives, and we also call it calculated risk. It is similar to the threshold level of risk acceptance. And once the threshold risk is breached, business controls and risk mitigation actions are activated by management or the system, as the case may be, to bring the exposure back to within acceptable levels. So in case you see that you look at the stock market, they have risen so much. The VXI, which was lying low at 102, has now gone to 8. So now it has to be the initiative of the entire regulatory body to bring it back to that posture where risk is minimized. So this has to be similar with the businesses also. The risk response. The purpose of assessing and addressing risk is to constrain them to a tolerable level within the risk appetite of the organization. Yes, they have to be very in control tolerably. The risk strategy depends upon the organization's risk maturity. Organizations at low risk maturity levels may require internal auditors to consult by promoting and advising on identification and response to risk. Very, very important. We have to judge the organization's risk maturity and then take calls. The internal auditor needs to interview and discuss with managers to understand their risk management process and their response to risk in their operations. And more importantly, internal auditors should emphasize on whether risk management processes are working properly, responses to key risks, and monitoring the controls so that things move in the right esteem. So, ladies and gentlemen, I thank you here, and now I go back to introducing the three speakers today. Give me a second before I put on my... The first speaker of the day is Madam Geeta Ramanathan. She is, I should say with great reverence, that she has been truly involved into the program, in designing the program and putting it across to the members. She would be taking the topic Handholding of SMPs in effective conduct of internal audit in large corporates. She is currently working as Head and AVP Management Audit with EID Perry India Limited, Murugappa Group, Chennai. He is a qualified chartered accountant and has rich corporate experience in top companies like Ashok Leyland and number of Big Four. She was conferred the Excellence in Management Award by Venus International Foundation in 2019. She has also co-authored a book, The New Plan A, which deals with the various midlife career challenges faced by working women and the various stakeholder interventions required to them to resume their careers. She also contributes articles on various topics to newspapers, and presently she has been a part of the group which would formulate inter-audit standards for membership. The second speaker, Mr. Harish Dua, is speaking on internal audit in startup environment. Mr. Dua is a qualified chartered accountant of 1992 batch. He is also a qualified CIA, CISA, and CISSP, which is Certified Information System Security Professional. He has post-qualification experience of more than 25 years. He has worked with companies like Bartley Boy Limited, Godrej Group, Future Group, and JSW Group. He has exposure to audit of manufacturing, infrastructure, FMCG projects, mining and retail industry. Currently, he is heading internal audit and risk management function of JSW Steel Limited and group companies having annual turnover of more than 11 billion. JSW Group is engaged in various businesses like steel, power, cement, port, mining, and business. He is associated with number of professional institutes and organizations and has given in various presentations in various forums. The third speaker of the day is Mr. Robin Banerjee, who would speak on risk response strategy. Robin is from industry. He is the managing director of Capri Hens India Limited. He has served several national, multinational global corporates in senior positions, including Hindustan, Unilever as GM, ArcelorMittal Germany, Thomas Cook, SR Steel, Suzlon Energy. He is a chartered accountant, cost accountant, and a company secretary. So he is also the chairman of Confederations of Indian Industry, Western India for Finance and Taxation Committee. He has authored 2 best-selling books. One, Who Cheats and How, available in English, Hindi, and Marathi, and Who Blunders and How, which is just published. So I will not take much of your time. I won't stand between you and Madam Geeta, who has a lot of impetus into creating value and worth for SMPs. You want to bring them onto the board so that people are able to take great clues and ideas of working. So, ladies and gentlemen, I call upon Madam Geeta so that she can take the program further. Madam Geeta, you are there?
Yes, yes. Thank you so much. Thank
Most
you so
welcome,
much,
madam. Thank you.
It's my honor to be here and present my thoughts to such great dignitaries who have so much of experience. I hope I'm able to add some value. I'll just share my PPT. Just give me a minute.
Sure, madam. The dice is all yours now. Thank you.
Thank you. So is my PPT visible? Is the PPT visible? I can't hear you. Yeah.
Visible, madam. Visible. Please go ahead.
Yes.
Okay. So, good evening, everybody. Welcome to this session on handholding of SMPs in the effective conduct of internal audit in large corporates. I am Geeta Ramanathan. I head the audit function and the risk management function at ICAI India Limited, one of the largest sugar manufacturing companies in the country. Just a disclaimer that the views expressed here are those of mine. They are my personal opinion. Do not reflect the official policy or standard of the company. To put it in perspective. Internal audit, it might be a little repeat, but I thought I should just touch upon it. We all know that it is the independent objective assurance and consulting activity, and is designed to improve the functions organization's operations, and the role is to provide independent assurance that an organization's risk management, governance and internal control processes are operating effectively. There's of course been a huge shift from where we started and where we are now as far as internal audit is concerned. Internal audit of course is tasked with providing unbiased independent reviews of systems, business organizations and processes, and the expectations have just been increasing manifold. And it is not just about talking about the compliance, but today they expect us to partner. And as Sri Nanda also was telling, they expect you to be a business partner and to also provide a lot of value added services, not only to the management, to the board of directors and generally the business owners as well. What do we do at ICAI? At ICAI, we have a management audit function which has been quite vibrant. And in fact, incidentally, this is my second stint at ICAI. And from the beginning at EID, the company has always believed in having an in-house team, though at various intervals based on the requirement and the decisions of the managing director or the board. There have been some audits which have been given to chartered accountant firms. So it has at times been a blend of in-house and outsourced. But at every point of time, there has been an in-house team which has at least handheld, even though we have outsourced certain audits. And we have a team comprising of chartered accountants, cost accountants, qualified, semi-qualified. We have an engineer, which definitely helps us in many of our audits related to production, process, even in fixed assets verification and audit. We have found that's been very useful. And given that we are in the industry, sugar industry, and sugarcane is the major raw material, as you all must be knowing. So we procure the sugarcane from farmers spread across the length and breadth of Tamil Nadu, Andhra, and Karnataka. So in our team, we also have some agriculture science background, either a diploma or a MSc. That really helps us in carrying out specific audit relating to the fields. And of course, we have some outsourced chartered accountants and subject matter experts. We are in ISO 9001-2015 certified and one of the first audit departments to get this ISO certification, which still continues till date. And our scope of audit, like I'm talking from the view of a manufacturing company, we do have the audits of P2P and O2C, H2R, expense reviews of CAPEX and OPEX. Since I told you we have sugarcane, we have a separate system in which we track. It is a very complex process. There are several loans which are given, and we also have to pay them within certain days to the suppliers. And then you have the HNTs, that is the people who cultivate the cane. So all those procurement, bill processing, that itself is a very mammoth exercise. And so that is something also we regularly audit. We of course have our process parameters. We sometimes do the SHE audit, the safety, health and environment audit. We have a centralized purchase team, so which sits at the head office. So that coordinates with the plant functions. So that audit is, again, they really take care of a huge volume. So that is an audit which is done every year. Supply chain management, treasury, of course, information technology. We mostly use experts, external people, since it requires a lot of tools and all. And so we normally rely on external auditors. Regulatory compliances, the cane field audit. Incidentally, we have a team of people who regularly visit. It's almost like a concurrent audit. They regularly visit the fields and they look at the growth of the raw sugar cane, whether it's been, they followed all the procedures, because it's totally, our production and all is totally dependent on the sugar cane availability and the quality of cane. So they report on this periodically. And this is also presented to the board once in 6 months. We do present issues arising from the cane field audits. We also take up audits on special request. Our plan is that we go based on the business plan. We look at what are the business plan, what are the key result areas, what are the critical functions which is to take place in the following year. And based on certain areas which are very critical, we do it year on year. Certain areas we do based on the risk assessment. We do it once in 2 years. So, and of course, then we also discuss with the business owners, some functional heads and business owners, they want us to do the audit, even though it is probably an area which we would do once in 2 years. So all these factors are taken into consideration and we draw up our audit plan. Sometimes in addition to the areas which are approved in the audit plan, the audit committee also requests us to do some additional audits. And then we have also other special audits that we take up. So this is how we do, and as I said, it's a blend of both in-house and outsourced audit. Hello?
You are audible, ma'am.
Okay, fine. I thought for a moment I was not audible. Sorry. Yes. Okay, moving on. This, apart from regular audits, we also participate. The reason I'm telling all this is that this will also give an idea about what are the different areas and how the scope is so enlarged in large corporates that there are a lot of avenues for SMPs to contribute and to support. Sometimes we take up special audits also, and these are normally actually not, I won't even call it in the scope of audit. It is done as an ancillary to support the business. As I said, we also need to support the business. So we do special assignments on need basis, especially if the audit is not being taken up that year. Then many times the employee incentive computation, unless the audit clears it, it is not paid. So there's sometimes incentive computation payable to farmers. We have also taken up this is a concept we just started called audit notes. It could be called by any name. It is on areas where we are not taken up. It's not there in the audit, but and let's say there is a time gap between two audits. So we use that time, apart from updating ourselves, we use that to identify areas where we feel some improvements are required or there are some control gaps. So we take up some specific areas, small areas, and then we do a kind of an in-depth study and just issue it as a note. And this has found a lot of favor, and it has been really appreciated, this effort by the auditees. And control automation, there are many processes based on what we identify, and then we just suggest how it can be automated, and then it is taken up. So instead of just saying that it should be automated, we also give them steps on how they could go about it. So that is more helpful rather than just telling they should automate it. There are times where since it's a large corporate, we do come across many issues across different areas. So we periodically we prepare a compendium of the issues, and we give it to the it's more like data mining, and we give it to the auditees. This helps them in horizontal deployment, because we may not cover all our factories. We have about 10 factories, so we may not be able to do all the factories every year. So if any issues coming in factory A, so this helps. So it helps in redeploying and making sure that this issue is not repeated elsewhere. So that is how we try to help the auditees. And then we also prepare self-assessment checklists. This is to help the audit. We go sometimes depending on the scope and the area, we would go there for about 2 to 3 weeks. And there are certain issues which come, let's say repeatedly, or based on our experience, we know that these may be some areas where issues may come. So we prepare a checklist and we give it to the auditees, that these are the control gaps or these are the issues that you should look out for. So which they can themselves tick off, and do a kind of a self-audit, and that helps us to focus on bigger things, and it helps us to go to the next level, rather than, again, because given the time that we have for each audit, the duration, it helps to focus on bigger issues. So that's how it's something which we have been trying. We also use guest auditor within the company. This has been going on from 2003 itself. This is a practice which has been there in the company. Once we wanted to do production audit, and there was a person who was in production, but because of some personal reasons, he was transferred to the IT department. So we had taken specific approvals and all, and we had used him as a guest auditor. So it was a good blend. We also learned a lot from him, how to look at it even from the business side. It helped us. And we try to escalate some very critical issues. We don't wait till the end of the audit because they also need to take corrective action. So on a real-time basis, certain critical issues are definitely flagged off immediately. And we do keep our audits very flexible, audit plans flexible and agile to accommodate any new demands from the auditees and from the business heads. And we have a coordinator. Even though we have SMPs, we make sure that we have a coordinator. I'll be talking about this more later. This coordinator ensures that there is sometimes a gap between what the SMP has understood or is expecting and the expectations of the company and the auditee. So being a coordinator who's of the in-house internal audit department, he is able to bridge this gap, and at least initially a lot of hand-holding is required before they really get attuned to the requirements of the company. So this is something we do. This is just to tell you in brief. We all know we are all facing the new normal. We have been living with uncertainty. There has been a lot of impact on the businesses. Different businesses have been affected in many ways. Some have really been affected very badly. And this has also led to work from home, which has led to data privacy and cyber security threats. And since travel has been restricted in the initial at least couple of months or 3-4 months, many of us couldn't even visit the plants for the audit. And so that also has led to a potential fear that there could be compromised or lax controls. In this scenario, the challenges faced by internal audit, especially given the pandemic, is that we have had to resort to offline audits, no access to physical documents and files. It has been, for some companies which don't have the data fully on, in the soft form, it has really been a challenge. So we have had to do faceless audits, touchless audits. From walkthroughs, we have gone to talkthroughs. We have had to test controls in virtual environment. We have had to rely on some of the documents which were scanned. So there always a doubt whether we have got the entire documents with us. IT access, bandwidth connectivity, and also coordination. That was a major issue because auditees also were finding it difficult in the situation. They had their own department issues. They had to run the departments, and despite that, and when we had to get any data from them, so we had to work around. Sometimes we could not even getting everybody's time, uniform time to even discuss the issues. That itself was a challenge. And this has also led to some extended timelines. We have not been able to complete the audits within the time. I'm talking, this is a general issue, I think, across many companies that I've spoken to. And in some companies, there have also been some kind of, in this situation, of course, there has been some kind of talent separation. And that has also led to, and given the situation of, as I said, we are not even seeing each other and we're auditing. So that has led to its own challenges, because audit to a great deal relies a lot on the body language, which is very missing, because we have this innate ability of sensing whether a person is telling the truth or not, well, as we talk to them. So this has been really missing. Virtual we can do, it enables, but it can't completely replace, is what I feel. Rapport building also has of course taken a beating, because we do beyond audit, we have to develop a rapport, so which has been difficult during this time. That some of the team members have been dispersed because they have left pre-COVID, that left, and they continue to work from their hometowns where the network connectivity also has not been so great. So with all these challenges, we have been continuing. This is just a gist of all the way we have been impacted because of the new normal. This is just, I just wanted to just share this. Coming to the topic of expectations. Now there may be some overlapping of some of these concepts that I'm talking about. Now what generally, because expectations and what they should do and how we should handle, there may be some overlapping. So just request you to pardon me. What the expectations of large corporates is, yes, corporates are open to SMPs because they're looking at fresh ideas, they're looking at out of box thinking, they're looking at young energetic people who are probably more IT savvy. And for selection of audits, large corporates normally also rely, especially when it's the first time you're looking for an SMP, you definitely rely a lot on reference. Now, as they say, in case of SMPs, their reputation, and that is what precedes them. So as they say, if you like, I had read this somewhere, that if you like our services, please, if you don't like our services, please tell us. And if you like our services, please tell others. So it is something like that. So we do definitely, background check is done. So it is very important that they maintain a good body of work. And for some audits like IT, indirect tax, definitely people tend to go to SMPs because these are very niche areas and it requires a lot of expertise. And we have also sometimes had a challenge in getting an auditor for, let's say, treasury audit, for instance, though it is something that can be done by other auditors as well. But there are certain areas which do require some in-depth expertise. And especially auditees also expect this. When you go to audit the treasury and the guy who's handling it at the corporate is a really seasoned player. So you can't go to him with some half-baked knowledge. So that selection is definitely, we expect that you have a good a body of work, or at least display some enthusiasm when you come. Presentation is so key. We also expect you, when you come, that you do your homework. When you're pitching for an assignment or something, let's say for any company, today there's so much of plethora of data available on the websites. You have your annual reports, you have industry reports, and our institute has also come up with such wonderful guidance notes on the different industries and also how to do the internal audit and all, which are so in-depth and so detailed. So if somebody is, if any SMP is coming, corporates expect them that they have at least some knowledge of the industry and the processes they should come, and not just come and expect everything to be told to them or spoon-fed. So the pitching has to be really right. And they should also, as I said, the first impression goes a long way. So this is something which we expect, corporates expect. Corporates expect them to also be transparent, not overstretching, and not promising something which they may not be able to deliver or for which they don't have capabilities. Or even if they don't have capabilities, as long as they're able to tie up with some expertise, some expert who's able to, because we normally a corporate may not want to go to several auditors. You would just like to go to one or two, and you expect them to coordinate. Otherwise, coordinating with so many SMPs and all, sometimes it does become difficult. So on transparency on the bandwidth, the kind of resources you have, and whether you can meet the timelines, that is so important. So it should be told in at the outset itself if there are going to be some issues. Flexible, yes, because when it comes to large corporates, I've generally seen the auditees especially. They generally, when you tell them Big Four, they are readily accept the audit. But if it is maybe the Big Six or the Big Eight or below that, sometimes they have to be convinced. So SMPs also are expected that if they have to break that barrier, they need to be a little flexible on their fees. There are firms which are an offshoot, like from they have started off, they were working in Deloitte or they're working in one of the Big Fours or KPMG, and they started their own firms. So they are also a good potential source of, I mean, we have the access to them also. And so they can't be, of course, expecting the same rates. Sometimes we find that they expect the same, almost the similar kind of rates that they used to charge when they were in Big Four. So when you're at least taking the first assignment, somewhere you should treat it as probably an investment rather than a cost or a marketing expenditure. So that is very important, to be a little flexible when you're negotiating about the scope. And long-term relationship, of course, you should look at a long-term relationship. And that is what we expect. I remember about 2 years back, we were wanting to do an IT audit, and we were referred, one firm was referred to us from a Bangalore-based firm. And at that time, for some various reasons, which I don't recall, we decided that we would not go ahead with the audit. In fact, we didn't go ahead with the audit at all. But this firm, probably sensing that there is always a next time, he continued to keep in touch with me. And I would get wishes and on New Year or any festivals and anything, any important literature, anything on IT, he would continue to send me. So there was a good recall value. So later on, when we decided to go ahead, we actually got in touch with him because he had done it with a long-term relationship. He didn't just stop engaging with us just because an assignment didn't come through. Confidentiality, yes, for SMPs, it's an issue. I mean, it's something that is corporates are little concerned about. So that is something you should really give them the confidence that the data that they are sharing, there's always a fear that the data may be shared because they are wanting, they're wanting to extend their services. So it may be shared. There is a fear. So they have to assuage this, SMPs. So that is a general expectation from a large corporate about that the data and confidentiality will be maintained. Conflict of interest is one. Again, as I said about communication and with relevant experience. And you need happening in the audit timely basis. We also analytics, as I said, really this should be used be equal, but when there's a lot of data involved, especially in large corporates, the use of some tools and some analytics is definitely required, and that is where it will be expected that they are also very adept at this. And escalating whenever you need help, as I said, if there's a coordinator, they really need to reach out and finalize the report. Sometimes we find that the finalization report takes a very, very long time, and with proper implementable recommendation, which is most business oriented. So these are some of the things that we definitely expect. Now, SMPs in corporate, as to how we can use SMPs or what are the advantages of using SMPs. Yes, we are definitely, this is a growing fraternity of budding chartered accountants, and by providing exposure, they also learn, we also learn sometimes some skills from them. And this is the data taken from the website, though there is no uniform category maybe to categorize the criteria to categorize the firms. There are about 42,339 firms. So even if we take the first two, proprietary and firms with even 2-3 partners, so still there are about 40,000 firms across India whose services are available for us. So we should definitely do our bit to support our fraternity. And one other expectation is that due to the changes and all, sometimes when people work in corporates, they are so caught up in the work that there are times when we don't spend time to read up and update. But SMPs, since that is the bread and butter, it is expected that because of that and because of their exposure to different clients. So that one, the SMPs compared to Big Four. Sometimes, as I said, there are some firms which are either offshoot of Big Four or who have been in practice and are really good. So we get quality output at reduced prices. So that is also very useful for the corporates. And it's presumed that, we also look forward to a very different approach. As I said, some out-of-box thinking. Since they are exposed to different organizations, it is hoped that some good practices or better practices from other companies or something which they've observed, it will come as a recommendation. And and so that way it will help us in also benchmarking, maybe, if similar industry. And since different practices they have, as I said, we also end up learning, and it helps us also to be up to date. SMPs do push us sometimes, they do push us because they are more updated and they read up a lot. So that sometimes also helps the audit department. Now, when it comes to challenges, as I said, some of these may be overlapping. Sometimes the team may not have the required skill. For instance, as I said, we have always had a challenge, let's say for a treasury audit, or if we want to, let's say, give all the audits, or about 5 audits out of the plan, let's say we want to give SMPs. Sometimes we don't want to deal with so many SMPs at the same time because it is difficult to then coordinate. So we want to give it to one particular firm or maybe 2 firms. So, and if those firms, between the 2 of them, if all the 5 skills required for those audits are not there, then it becomes a big issue. And that is where sometimes SMPs also lose out. The other, as I said, about the timelines, that is not being met. So that we have, we always have found that timelines are always, there's a stretch, most of the times, I won't say always, I don't want to generalize, follow-up, the kind of follow-up, because it is a different ball game. Large corporate is a completely different ball game. It is so spread out. You really need to be at it, and your follow-up technique has to be really top-notch. The right assignments, sometimes when you don't pick up the right assignments, then they are faced with a challenge, they find it difficult to deliver, and sometimes they don't get the output, and then you are unhappy with them, and then, so it's like a recipe for disaster. Change of teams, sometimes they do face high attrition. So let's say an auditor has come and you have all the business knowledge this one particular person has. So unless he has shared it with the rest of his team members or with his peers, and if he has left, then it becomes a big problem, because then you have to again reinvent the wheel, and then you have to again just acquaint them with all the business processes, and corporates don't have kind of time. So these are sometimes the challenges that SMPs face, which affect the corporates. And sometimes we also see them who already got into practice, less or no exposure to corporate culture. Sometimes the handling of the people and the auditees, we find that there is some issues they do face. For instance, in one of the audits for one SMP, when he was discussing or debating a critical issue with an auditee, without his knowledge, he had recorded the conversation. So this really led to a big backlash. So I'm saying this is just one of the things. So sometimes this exposure to a corporate culture as to what are the expectations, it does help. Hello? Hello, am I audible?
Yes. Yes.
I heard some noise, so I was wondering out. Okay, thank you. And then industry benchmark, if they do not have some kind of benchmark, that times is a challenge faced by them. Ability to obtain data, what I mean is auditees are extremely demanding, sometimes even more demanding than the audit committee members. And you really need to defend because they, as I said, they know inside out and they know how to throw you off track. They know how to turn it and twist it. So you have to be really strong and have the ability to talk with them. Sometimes we find that they are not able to defend or they just give in easily and just agree with the auditee. So these are some issues that SMPs face and who they have also discussed this, some of these with us. And focus is on transaction rather than process audits. So that also doesn't help because as I said, we are looking at more like unlike the deviations or the non-compliances. Yes, that is important. But overall, how the business processes can be improved, what are the strategic issues, what are the gaps. So these are some of the things that corporates need. I'll focus again on compliance. A deep dive, a little more deep dive is required. Sometimes because of lack of time, they are not able to do a deep dive. And we find that truncated sample size, sometimes what happens because of the follow-up that they are not able to do or carry out as much as it should. As I said, it is a challenge. I don't fully blame SMPs. They just truncate the sample size that they're doing and they give a disclaimer. So this sometimes is definitely an issue. And the other is business-oriented recommendations. See, what I find is many times the recommendation is like the reverse of the issue. In the sense, if the issue is, for instance, TDS not deducted or PF not remitted on time, the recommendation is PF should be remitted on time, TDS should be deducted. So that doesn't help. When going into the root cause as to what happened, like if TDS was not deducted, let's say, for instance, is it because the process is not automated or is it because the vendor is both his supplying material and also offering services and somewhere this has led to some confusion? In the vendor master, it was not probably ticked off, because of which it was not deducted. So these are some of the issues they should little deep dive and go into and come up with more. This is just one example I wanted to give of business-oriented recommendations. It should not be just the opposite of the issue. So that is one. And number of discussions presenting the report. Many a times we find that we have to redo the report in spite of informing them. Sometimes it doesn't come in the required format. And there have been times when, as I said, the report, what happens is you can't take an issue, a critical issue to the audit committee where either you have to convince them or you have to convince the auditee or you have to agree to disagree because of certain reasons. It could be that you are suggesting something which requires an expenditure and the client and you don't have a budget for it. And the auditee says, yes, we agree with you, but currently we don't have the budget. That is also maybe acceptable or we'll do it later. But if the auditor is giving a recommendation or is talking, let's say, about GST was erroneously availed, for instance, and the auditee is replying, as per circular so and so, we have. So we can't take this audit. You have to, has to, and either or the end it degree. It can't go like this with your. So every time we find the in-house has to do this alignment, has to play middle, has to do that extra shape. So these some of the things even this is maybe it's a challenge faced by them, but it is something that SMP. This is one challenges faced by them and what are the things they need to do which they are not doing, which is what I'm just coming to. Data analytics, what they need to do to overcome challenges. Yes, data analytics today you can't do away with it. You can't push it away. Upskill competencies and capabilities and access to qualified staff. You have to keep reading and keep updating. That's one thing authorities tell, that they are not updating. They are looking at our expense and then doing audit. Some things, yes, will have to be on the job, but to extend your homework also. Turnaround of a very long time. Sometimes it doesn't come when you want. What they corporates. So if you build a repository of issues, this will also help you in conducting your audit faster, and also focusing on, as I said, the more important process and strategic level issues, and the ability to defend with the auditees. That also something I've already told. Improve business knowledge. As I said, there are a lot of avenues today. Really need to improve the business knowledge, and improve visibility through networking, training the resources, communication and presentation skills. Whether it's right or wrong, unfortunately, the proof of the pudding is in the eating. So however good work you have done, unless you have communicated it and presented it properly, only then the final effect, that is how you can make the final impact. That is where you can leave an impact. And knowledge of IT applications, SAP, Oracle, all this is required. And the quality and content of the report. And they need to decide, some SMPs, I know of some firms who are focusing on GST audit. They have decided that this is going to be their niche, and they have gone at that. Clarity needs to be there, whether you want to be on this specified niche area or you want to offer a portfolio of services. So that clarity is also very important, and having a framework of audit. And wherever you feel that some skills are not there, you need to align with third parties. I think many people are doing it. So you need to align with third parties, which helps you in your own capacity building, so that as a one-stop shop, you can be a solution provider. And the corporates don't have to go to look at the different SMPs. Now, how corporates can, do I have some time? I just have, I think, 5 minutes. I'll take 5 minutes more. How much time do I have?
Yeah, ma'am. You may continue, ma'am.
Okay. I have 5 minutes?
Yeah, ma'am.
Okay, fine. Thank you. Yeah, sure. How corporates can actually handhold? Yes, as I said, when you have an in-house team, it is better to have a coordinator, because initially it is different. It is required, because each organization has its own complexity, demands on audit committee. So initially, definitely it has to be they have to be handheld. We have to handhold them and help them in acquainting themselves with the requirements. After which SMPs should take a cue from there, and from after a couple of assignments, they should be able to handle it by themselves. And corporates can be a little lenient. By lenient, what I mean is that there are many people, so they can start. I'll come to it in the next slide. If they're not confident enough for a first timer, they can always give some small assignment to start with. What are the different kinds of assignments they can give? We will see in the next slide. So this way they can test their capability, and accordingly they can decide. And feedback. We used to have this system, because in EID we have dealt with several SMPs. Actually, my earlier boss, Mr. Rajeshwaran, in fact, he's very well known in the IIA circle and the interlogic fraternity for the encouragement and the support he has given to several firms, especially in Chennai. So we used to have a system of feedback. We had on a 5-point Likert scale and all, we had different parameters on which we would rate them, and we would actually provide feedback to them, so that they can also take steps to improve. And by visibility, we can provide references. I feel like, as I told you, when we were looking for a GST audit, immediately people only suggested Big Four names, the names of Big Four firms. But we didn't want to go. We said, I'm sure there are firms who are equally good or even better at this. So we looked around and we were referred, one name was referred to us, and we used them and they were excellent in GST. So I then circulated, their name. I spread the reference to other group firms, group companies in my group, other companies. So if we can have some forums and all in which we can talk about the good experiences that we have had, it will definitely help SMPs. We need to timely pay them fees, because obviously not all of them may have deep pockets. At EID, we have always done that. For all the SMPs, we have made sure we have paid them on a timely basis their fees. That is somewhere we really need to help them. Briefing sessions, we have also done this regularly. We have briefing sessions for them even before the audit is started. We call them, we tell them exactly about the culture, about the different kinds of audits, auditees, about the data availability, about the kind of, because people are different obviously. So, and about the audit committee expectations, about the format of our audit reports. So we do have this, so we have this briefing session, and we expect that we'll also take this up seriously, so that when they actually come for audit, I also feel that they should probably collect once to give the audit, of course, the key documents of your SOP or the interactions. They should draw up the audit plan only after this. So that will also be very beneficial. And the other way I feel which corporates can really help and handle SMPs there are many employees who retire, CFOs, it could be even company secretaries or even head of audits from large companies. They have such rich experience, which is probably really untapped. And those who have not taken up, let's say, post-retirement, and there are so many I know who are willing to really help the profession and give back to the profession. Probably we could, create maybe a data bank or a forum, and they can guide the SMPs as to what are the expectations, because it can be daunting for some first-timers especially. So this can be definitely of use. And when some of them don't have access, let's say, to data analytics or audit tools, for whatever reason, maybe it could be because it's expensive, and if the large corporates have these tools, we can probably even give them access to it, and so that they can also get hands-on experience. So it's like a win-win situation for both. So these are some of the ways in which I feel corporates can handhold, and how what kind of services we can use them for. Now, due to travel restrictions imposed, location, the small firms who are based at location, they can really use this opportunity because they can do this factory-based audits. And again, some illustrative services where corporates can use them. Data mining. As I said, we have a lot of data, a lot of reports. Large corporates, sometimes it gets lost, and we can use them for that. For SOPs and manuals, we can use them. If not, if we do not want to use them for audit straight away, for any special assignment, maybe we can take that help. For DOA, delegation authority, many companies are not updating the delegation authority because nobody has the time. For risk register preparation, it need not be fully given to them, but they can assist probably the person in the audit department in this. IFC controls, physical verification of inventory, fixed assets, vendor master, material cleanup. Many organizations don't look at this, which actually leads to a lot of other audit issues. Contract management, how many clauses, if there are any penalty clauses. For instance, you enter into contracts with transporters, and there may be some clause whereby the rate that you give is linked to the fuel price. So are we really monitoring this and ensuring that the rate is brought down if required based on the clause or any other penalty? It sometimes just gets missed out. So we can use them for exclusive contract management. Certification works. Tax audits can be given to them. And many firms have also realized they are doing pre-audit services, of course, for statutory audit. Tax audit, even GST audits, they can be used. For concurrent audit, they can be used. Audit of depots, CFAs, branches, warehouse. We have definitely used SMPs for many of these, or at least some of these things. We have definitely used SMPs. So yes, this is what I wanted to share with you briefly. I don't know if I've exceeded the time or I've finished before time. So this is some of my thoughts which I thought I will just share with you. So thank you so much. I hope it has been useful in some ways. There are at least a few takeaways from this. Thank you so much for the opportunity given to me. I can be reached at my email ID if there are any specific questions. And I'll also be available for Q&A later if there are any questions. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am, for sharing your experience, practical experience with us, with your current industry at Perry India Limited. Now we hand over the session to Harish Dua sir for the session Internal Audit in Startup Environment.
Good evening.
Good evening, sir.
Whether it's visible, my presentation visible?
Yeah, sir.
Okay. Before starting off my session, my regards to Geeta madam. She took a name of my first guru in internal audit, Mr. Rajeshwaran. I learned my first internal audit from Mr. Rajeshwaran when I was working with him in Blue Star. So please give my regards to him.
Definitely. I know he's been a guru and a mentor for many people. I'm sure he'll be glad to hear this. Definitely, I'll pass it on. Thank you.
So he's also one of my initial gurus who taught me the internal audit. Let me start with my topic of. Let me start with the topic of internal audit in startup environments. Sorry, I think it's not working. First point is what we call a startup company. Normally, a startup company is a company or a project undertaken by an entrepreneur to seek, develop, and validate a scalable economic model. So what does it mean? If you see what are the important things given in this definition, one is that it's a new project or venture. So it's something new. For example, I'm working in a JSW Steel Limited, and I expand my capacity from 5 million ton to 10 million ton. It may be a project, but this is a not new venture. So this cannot be called as a startup company. Second thing is it is by entrepreneur. Now we know that government also takes up a lot of new ventures, projects, new bridges. That the metro railways and other thing, but we don't call them as a startup company because it has to be started by some entrepreneur. The third important thing is scalable. Scalable means that today when you are starting, you have an objective of increasing this particular business venture by leaps and bounds. So for example, tomorrow suppose I retire from my company or I resign from my company and I start my own CA firm to take up the tax audits or statutory audits. It cannot be called a startup company. I say it is a startup for me, but here we don't mention it as a startup company because that model is not a scalable model. And the last is it should be economic model. Now, if you see that if tomorrow you have a good feeling about the people and other thing, or you are worried about some wrong thing happening in the society, and you start an NGO to help the people, will you call it a startup company? No, we will not call it a startup company. So we are not mentioning those things. So if any startup company has these 4 features, then we will call it as a startup company. And then we will take it forward and we see that what are the issues and challenges for internal audit in that. So features of a startup company. Normally this startup company starts with an idea or concept. So maybe one entrepreneur is there, a business plan is there, a normal person who's passed out from IIM, any IIT engineer, he has some idea or concept which he feels that which can be converted into a business opportunity. Normally it has something unique in that. So it's not a normal thing that somebody is starting a small company, a manufacturing company. Third, it starts with the entrepreneur capital. So what happens? The first entrepreneur puts his own capital, his own money to start the operations, to start the idea. Then he looks for a venture capitalist who can fund this particular project or a particular business. Once he gets a venture capitalist on the board, he has his own capital, he develops this idea. Once his idea is developed and test started, then he looks for a scalability. So for example, if you take any example of any startup, where is a franchisee model is there. In franchising model, you start one shop, maybe a food joint, and then you wanted to have 100 joints like that similar way in a franchising model. So he thinks, how can I expand that leaps and bounds? Normally, if you see all those startups, they have automation in the supply chain. So, for example, if you take an example of, say, Paytm, if you take an example of Amazon or a Flipkart, you will see that there's a lot of automation involved in the reaching to the customer and delivering the products or services to the customer. If you see on the stock market, or if you see on that, with a venture capitalist, these type of ventures have a high valuation compared to the old companies. Take an example, a company which is an old company, a brick and mortar company. Suppose it has a turnover of say 100 crores. Its valuation may be X. But if it is a startup company which has a scalability, availability is there, and it is possible to grow in the future by a very high margin, the valuations, the capital valuations given by the venture capitalist in the market is much more than that. If you see all these startup companies, normally in the initial phase they incur the losses. Why? Because of the high startup cost. And these are the startup companies who get funding based on the future growth opportunities. I thought I will show you some of the examples of startup companies in India since last 10 years. Take an example of Zomato. Zomato started in 2008 and total funding they got is around 755 millions. Wow Momo. Now if you see, Wow Momo is as a company which is delivering, it is a franchisee model, it is delivering of food products, and they have their own menu, particularly they are in the momos and the Chinese food. So they are having a funding of around 470 billions. Paytm everybody knows and most of the people uses. It has 2.2 billion funding. Ola Cabs also most of people have used. It started in 2010. It is around 3.8 billion. Vedantu is a recent one. I think you must have seen in a lot of advertisements during IPL. It actually started in 2011 as an online platform, learning platform, and it has already got 21.6 billion funding. Oyo, everybody is aware about how Oyo is involved in holidays and providing you the hotel business. It has a funding of 3.2 billion. Teribo Hotels is actually chain of hotels. So they have their own properties and own hotels. In case of Oyo, they don't have their own hotels. They had tied up with the hotels which are already there in the market. So they just provide a platform for any people or any passengers who want to stay in the Oyo hotels. So they just provide a platform and they back to back book the hotel with the current people who already have the hotels. In case of Teribo, they have developed their own hotels. Eco is an insurance company, started in 2017. It has around 107 million funding. Beju's, again, everybody knows that. You must have seen a lot of advertisement of Mr. Shah Rukh Khan. It has already got 1.4 billion. And there are much more another companies who have started since last 10 years. The idea of showing you all these things are, if you see that all these companies are in a different type of business. In case of Zomato, Oyo, Paytm, these are the companies, their main uniqueness is that they have an IT platform. They don't purchase anything, they don't sell anything. So what do? They have their own IT platform, they leverage the IT platform, they bring the buyer and the seller together on their platform. And in turn, they get some commission. The similar is case with Ola. But in case of Teribo and Wow Momos, they have their own outlets. In case of Teribo, they have their own hotels. People can go and stay in their hotels. That properties are managed by them and they incur all the expenses. Same is case of Wow Momo. They have their own food joints where they sell the various snacks and other things. Eco General Insurance, again a normal insurance company, but it is using a IT platform. So you can see that it is not only IT which is driving these startups, it is the IT coupled with hotels, again a very traditional business, education, and then food joints. Now, if you see in these startups, let's think that what are the challenges business is facing in that case. The most bigger challenge, I will say the number one challenge they are facing is a heavy dependence on external funding. If you see how Paytm is started or how Ola is started, their own capital was very less. And the amount of funding which I already shown you, it is much more than that. Because of this external funding and low capital, we can say it is a high leveraging. Normally, if any company goes to the bank and asks for the funding, the normal ratio, debt equity ratio, if you see, it ranges between 7 to 1.5. So the bank says that if you are putting 1 lakh rupees, we are ready to put you, we will ready to give you loan of 1.5 lakhs. But in case of these type of startups, you can see that debt equity ratio going even in the ratio of 8:1. So against one equity, bank may lend even eight times. Normally, bank doesn't lend, it is the other financial institutions and venture capitals who give the funding. Now, because of that, it becomes a high leveraging. Whenever there's a high leveraging, there's always a challenge and risk. When your own capital is less and you are mostly depending upon the other people to fund, and you have to pay interest from month to month, time to time, and if you slip somewhere, then it may result in closure of your business. Now, because of the high leveraging and high external funding, there are a lot of conditions put by these financial institutions, what we call covenant compliances. Now, these type of restrictions which they say that where this money which is coming from the funding, where it can be spent. Before giving the dividend, before doing any capital restructuring, before doing any major thing, they have to take a permission from the venture capitalist and the institutions who are giving them a funding. So there are a lot of restriction and compliances needs to be done, which are put by the companies who are funding them. And because all these people have given them funding based on their future growth prospects, so there's always a pressure on these startup companies to grow month on month. As already Madam has made a presentation on SMPs, the same feature is here. Because these are the new companies, there are no processes, there are no systems developed already. So there's always a high attrition rate of employees. As their businesses are uncertain and there's a high growth happening month on month, hence their cash flows are also uncertain. They also face a problem of lack of experienced manpower. So these are the challenges a business faces. Now, based on that, what are the challenges which internal auditor faces? Lean organization. Now, these are the normally companies would start with a minimum capital, a low capital, then it grows, year on year, month on month. So when these organizations get started, they have lean organization. When I say lean organization, for a particular turnover, for a particular business operations, the number of people in the organization are very less. Apart from lean organization, this also results in a flat organization structure. Take example of my company where we are manufacturing the steel. So head of the purchase, for example, I have a president handling the head of the purchase department. Under them, you have a vice president. Under vice president, there may be 3-4 general managers. Under each and there may be 5-6 managers who are doing the work. So there's the organization hierarchy is there. From say manager to general manager to vice president to the president. But in this organization, already their manpower is very thin. So normally they have a flat organization structure. You may feel that, you may have a CFO who may be at a say senior vice president level. Below that, you may have a person who may be at executive level or maybe assistant manager level. So the middle hierarchy level may not be there available in the organization. As I already said that these are the companies which are started by the entrepreneurs. Normally, whenever they start the organization, they choose the people who can help them to achieve their business objectives based on the personalities. So they feel that this person is the right person who can do a good marketing. This is the right person who can, good person in sourcing, or he's a good person who can handle the manpower. So based on that, these people get recruited at the initial stage. And because entrepreneur is the owner of the company, normally they go by the personalities rather than the processes. I already mentioned about the high attrition rate of the employees. I already mentioned about the COVID compliances, and there is always a requirement, there is always an expectation from internal auditor that they will check these COVID compliances, even from the companies who are funding them, including by the audit committees and by the owners themselves, that we need to know whether we are, defaulting on these compliances. Though these companies have a high automation in their front office, normally we have seen that they have a low automation in the back office processes. So, for example, we also have a company which is funding the startups. So we have seen a company, they are very good in having their apps, learning apps on the Android and iOS. So there's very sophisticated platform they have. But in the back office, if you see, for accounting and other things, they are using Tally. So though they have a very sophistication and very high-end IT infrastructure for the supply chain management and delivering the products, but on the back end, they don't invest much on the back office processes. Also, there is a lack of basic control hygiene. Normally, if there's an established company, you go and start doing the audit, you find a lot of things available. A lot of basic controls are there in the system. You can find, delegation of power available. A written document is available with you, which tells you that various managers and various officers for how much they are authorized to carry out the transactions. If transaction goes above a particular value, to whom to approach. So a lot of clarity is there. Apart from that, on the various processes, you can find also SOPs, written SOPs, documented SOPs are there, which help you to see that whether the processes, the actual transactions which are being carried out in those companies, or whether these are as per the let down SOPs or not. But in case of these startup companies, there's always a lack of documentation. You won't find any SOPs, you won't find a detailed written delegation of power and authority matrices. Apart from that, you will find that these companies are very discrimination, they're very, spending a lot of amount on the marketing cost. Because most of the fundings are coming from outside, so they need to create impression and the brand in the market. Take an example of a company, recently you might have seen an academy. So there's a recently started a company and you see a lot of advertisement happening during IPL and other thing, which is a very, heavy cost. Compare it to a company which is already there in the market, which is not a startup company. Will they spend that much amount? Your answer may be no. And initially, they have very less focus on the profitability. Their major focus of these companies, startup, is on the expansion, more sales, more outlets, more users, what we call more clicks, and more subscribers. So these are their major motivation because these are the growth indicators for them. Profitability takes a backseat. Many times we have seen that these companies go and start the outlets even though they are making the losses. I was working in a company which was in organized retail, and I seen that we used to open the stores knowing that those stores are making losses. But we are thinking that, okay, after 1 year or 2 years, that store may turn into the profit and, this store will be able to sustain on its own. But at the time, the driver for opening the more stores was to show more top line, was to show that there are larger number of footfalls and larger number of square feet which you are covering. Now we have seen that what are the challenges faced by the business. Because of the structure and other thing, what are the challenges are faced by the internal auditor? Now, what need to do in this case? Somewhere we need to reinvent the wheels. If you are already doing audit of established company, if you go to this new startup companies, you will feel that whatever you are doing in the earlier company may not work it here. Why? The first thing for any internal auditor is that he prepares a annual audit plan. He finds out what are the risks and what are the impact, which are the high risk areas, and based on that he draws his audit plan. If you see that mostly of this audit plan, it based on the past data and experience. But in this type of startup companies, there is no past data, there is no experience. So how to draw audit plan? Apart from that, because these are the in the high risk zones, that's why I say that there is always frequently changing risk landscape. Now, take an example of Paytm or take an example of Flipkart. Now, if you see that whatever risks are they are facing today, after 1 month their risks are different, totally different. Suddenly you feel that because they have getting higher valuations, the competitor comes in. The similar type of apps are available in the market. There may be government restrictions. We have seen that recently there was government restrictions put on the Chinese apps, which included PUBG, which is a gaming company. So their risk keeps on changing. Apart from that, because these are the startup companies and they are highly leveraged, so they always have a limited resources available for the internal auditors. Internal audit may not be their priority. So the resources given to the internal auditor to carry out audit are always limited. So you have to reinvent the wheel, you have to do all the work, you have to keep eye on the changing risk. But sorry, we will not give you more resources on that. Now, these are the companies mostly, I say, started by the people who are the young professionals. They may be IIM pass out, they may be IIT pass out. They have some idea about the business. But mostly we have seen that these are the companies, these are the entrepreneurs, they don't have much awareness about the internal audit. They are experts in their own fields, but many times, they don't know about the compliances, the company structures. So the understanding of internal audit is very limited. Now, apart from that, there are a lot of increased compliance requirements are there. It is not only Companies Act and the SEBI Act and other thing which you need to keep into account. A lot of these companies, if you see, they get funding from outside. If they get a funding from outside India, then you need to see the compliances related to FEMA, Anti-Corruption and Bribery Act, GDPR. GDPR, you know that there is an act which is to protect the privacy of the data of the customers, vendor, employees, or anybody who's staying in European region. Take an example, suppose Paytm tomorrow get a funding from Greece, or they take a funding from Italy. In that case, GDPR rules will be applicable to them. They cannot say that we are an Indian company, so we will not comply with that. That is one of the requirement in their agreement to comply with GDPR. Now, if you see that, what are the services normally we provide as an internal auditor? I divide the services provided by internal auditor into the two buckets. One is assurance service and another is consultancy service. So assurance services, we do transaction audits, we do process audits, we do technical audits, including our IT audits. Internal auditor also get involved in physical verification of inventory, fixed assets, spares, etc. Also, we carry out the related party transaction review. IFC, everybody is aware that it is mandatory for the listed companies and for the companies which are incorporated, and fraud investigations. Under consultancy services, you have a preparation of delegation of power, or what you call authority matrix. Some companies, some internal auditors are also giving services of preparation of SOPs for various processes. The internal auditor also carry out a lot of reviews to see that how to reduce the cost of the operations, how to benefit the company. Whenever a new ERP is implemented, whether it's like SAP, MFG Pro, Ramco, normally internal auditors are getting involved to see that whenever these processes are designed, there's internal control are inbuilt at the start of the ERP system. Apart from that, in some of the companies, you have seen the internal auditors also doubling a role of risk manager. In that case, they normally are getting involved in implementation of enterprise risk management framework in the whole company and their units. In some of the companies, we have seen internal auditors are also involved in identification of business risk. For example, in my company, which is making a steel, we keep track of some key indicators and we inform the management on month-on-month basis. So, for example, I keep a track of oil prices, I keep a track of coal prices, I also keep a track of interest rates for RBI, monetary policies are there. We also keep a track of what is happening on the geopolitics, particularly regarding the what is happening on the China front, because we have a lot of material coming from the China. So these indicators we keep track month on month, and we send these indicators to the management every month so that business risks are identified. Some of the companies which we acquire, our department was also involved in carrying out due diligence. So in some companies, internal auditors do get involved in the due diligence whenever they acquire any other company. We are also involved in audit of third-party facilities. For example, if you have franchisees, consignment agents, stockyards, so normally internal auditors go there and they check whether whatever facilities available with these franchisee or consignment agents are up to the mark or not, and whether they are following our processes or not. So these are the two types of services are there: assurance service and consultancy services. Tomorrow, for example, suppose I go to a startup company. Can I able to render all these services? Remember that these are the new companies and they have limited resources. So I need to pick and choose and see the timing of the companies, which are the services which are suitable to them. So the first priority for me as an internal auditor of a startup company is that to prepare and get approved audit charter. Audit charter is a document which writes down what are the services to be rendered by internal audit department, what are the limitations, which things he can check, which things he will not check, what are his authorities, and whatever he will deliver at the end of the period. And the most important thing, to whom he will report. One of the problems in startup companies is that because they don't have much awareness about the internal audit, they tell internal auditor to report to CFO, which may impact the independence of internal auditor. So it should be very clear in your audit charter that to whom you are reporting. If you are not in-house auditor, but if you are outsourced auditor, you are running a CA firm and you are giving service to startup companies, please get some document prepared on these lines. It will help you. Then we should ascertain what is the annual business plan and the budgets. Based on that, we also need to find out what are the expectations of outside stakeholders. The inside stakeholders like management, a board, definitely they are going to tell you what they expect from you. And that will be part of your audit charter. But many times whenever venture capitalists or financial institutions give you loan, they also expect something from internal auditor. Many times they tell the company that they want to see the internal audit reports, or they want periodic presentations from internal auditor to ensure them that their money is safe. So it is important to know that whether there are any expectations of outside stakeholders. Otherwise, it should not happen that you are writing, giving a reports to the management, and those reports goes to these financial institutions and lenders, and they find some fault in that. A report which is not meant to them, you return a report for the management and it is landed with the lender. So you may be in a very embarrassing situation. After ascertaining the annual business plan, audit charter, outside stakeholder expectations, you please prepare an annual audit plan. Now, it is good to prepare annual audit plan, but in this type of startup companies, I've seen that a lot of things change during the year. So we need to provide some flexibility. Hence, it is advisable after preparation of annual audit plan, we prepare a quarterly plan. And once quarterly plan is prepared, we need to find out how many resources are required to fulfill that quarterly audit plan. When I say resources, it includes both quantity and the quality. So what are skills are required, what type of manpower is required. But remember that whenever you are preparing this plan, do not commit the resources for long term. So if I know that I need to do 5 audits, out of them one is IT audit, one is financial audit, one may be HR related audit. So I need to see whether in my in-house department I have a skills. If I don't have a skills, then it is better to go and search for an outside partner who can help you out. Apart from that, keep watch on the new developments in a company. These are the startup companies, high growth companies. Things change very fast there. So what happens that their business process may change very fast. The processes inside may change very fast. So for example, today a company is working on tele. Tomorrow they come and say that because there is an external funding coming up and the venture capitalists or the financial institutions want SAP to get implemented. It can happen even overnight. Then manpower keeps on changing. I told you regarding high iteration rates. Funding keeps on changing. Suddenly you may find that company come and tell you that we are now thinking of raising a capital from financial markets and go for IPO listing. One of the indicators how to keep track of all these things is if you can able to get MIS, regular MIS from management on monthly basis, it may give you indicators where company is going and what are their future plans. If you have any questions, then I can take later on. Based on that, I thought that what should be the focus areas for internal auditor? The first and foremost thing I always find that we should have a preparation of delegation of power. Once you have a delegation power, you know that who are the people who are authorized up to what amount, who has authority to take the decisions. Once this document is prepared, you should push management for preparation of SOPs. If you have in-house resources, it is well enough that you can start preparing SOPs, but most of the time you won't get the resources there. Better that this work is outsourced to some firms, whether it's a big four or some medium-sized firm, who already have this type of exposure. Another important thing is regarding statutory compliances. Remember that one statutory non-compliance may shut down your company. Because some of those compliances which are coming from outside India are very, very stringent. Example of GDPR, which I told you. Periodic review of covenant compliances, again, if you don't comply with those covenant requirements, the lenders may ask company to repay the amount and company may close down. Apart from that, we know that recently Government of India has started giving various benefits to startup companies under Atmanirbhar scheme. Most of these companies may not be aware that these are the benefits available to them. Find out whether in your industry, in the company you are working, whether they are eligible for any of these benefits available to these companies. Recently, we acquired a startup company, and they were not aware that the government has, from the March onwards, the government has given the benefit of PF of the employees to be paid by the government. So we told them, and based on that, they could get a lot of benefits. Review of control over financial reporting is most important thing. Just think a company on which entrepreneur has put say 1 rupee, and on that lender has put 8 rupees. And tomorrow the lender finds that whatever financial statements is getting, these are false statements, or these are overstated profits. What will happen? He will take out the money on the very next opportunity, and your reputation will be tarnished. You will not able to get funding in the lifetime. So financial reporting, integrity of financial reporting is of utmost important for these type of companies. Whenever automation or digitization happen in these companies, please get involved, whether it's any ERP implementation happens or any software which is getting implemented for supply chain, just to see that whether there are any loose control points are there which may leak the revenue. And last, whenever you're doing any internal audit, whatever observations are there, you start doing a risk rating of your observations. Whether this observation is of a high risk, medium risk, and low risk. Because this will, once you keep track of those things, you know that on a risk landscape, from the internal control point of view, whether you are moving to the high risk zone overall or you are going in a medium risk or low risk zone. I just try to give one example how to rate your risk of any observations. So I just give you one example. For example, there is any point which you reported, and you reported in your point that there is an efficiency issue. So for example, in a production process, you feel that yield is 90% instead of 95%. If financial impact is more than 50 lakhs, you can say it is high risk observation. Once any observation is high risk, definitely you will keep track of that observation once in a quarter. If it is a process related issue, for example, if you feel that there's a process related issue is there regarding bill passing, you reported this particular observation, no action is taken for 2 times. Second time also you repeated the same observation. So more than 2 times have happened and there is no corrective action has been taken on that, you can put that as a high risk. Compliances, if there are any regulatory compliances you missed out, a company missed out, the impact of which is more than 5 lakh rupees or imprisonment. So for example, if you have failed to deposit TDS on time and the penalty is less than 5 lakhs, you may not like to put it as a high risk, but if the penalty is more than 5 lakhs, you may think it is a high risk. Others, maybe if you have any observation which is you feel that have a risk of losing the reputation, you can put it as a high risk. In the medium risk, again the same category. Only thing is that I change the financial impact from 50 lakhs to 10 lakhs. On process, it is only one time repeated observation, and compliance it is penalty of more than 1 lakhs. Similarly, how can you rate your observation on the low risk? Now, regarding this financial impact and other thing, it keeps changing from company to company. I just given you one example. It may not be applicable to your company. In my company, it can be a 5 crore rupees. Just give an example, how can you rate your observations? If any observation comes under the high risk category, please keep a track of that every quarter. If it comes under medium risk, you can keep a track once in 6 months. If it comes in a low category, you may do, maybe once in a year, you can keep track of that observation. Another question asked to me many times that how can I prepare a risk-based audit plan? I already told you that these are the companies where there's no past records available. If past records are not available, how can I find whether a particular process is risky or not risky, or how can I make an audit plan? So one illustration I tried to give you. Take any particular item, put under the 2 categories. One is impact, another is probability. Take example of fixed assets. Now, if a company has a fixed assets of a bigger amount, so impact may be high. If anything happens wrong, if suppose that particular assets is burned in the fire, then definitely impact to the company is very high. On the other case, probability of that particular risk. So for example, if I say a risk of fire occurring is very low, because I have a good controls, I have a fire extinguishers, I have a smoke detectors and other things. So it may come under high impact but low risk. Similarly, if you take an example of cash collection, if you are selling the goods on cash, now in that case, probability of anything can go wrong may be very high. Take an example of a organized retail store. Say for example, Big Bazaar. If you go to the Big Bazaar, you find that there are so many, cashiers are there who are collecting the cash against sale of the goods. So probability of anything going wrong may be high. But if you see overall collection, how much amount is getting collected per day, it may be in a medium range. It may be say few lakh rupees in a day. So it may fall under high probability but medium impact. Sale number 4. So go on putting all those items under these buckets. So there are total 9 buckets under which you can put that. And for example, if you find a particular item which is high risk, high impact is there. Okay. Particularly, for example, it's a purchase of your raw material, purchase of major item which is there. And you find that also there are no controls. You find that your payment is made by check, not through by online payment. Bill passing process, which is there, is a very manual process. So you can term it as high risk, high impact. So these audits, in my view, you can cover 3 times in a year. Let's go to sale number 2, where there is a medium probability of any risk appearing, but there is a higher impact is there. Those items you may cover twice in a year. Let's see the third item, which is I will call is low probability of occurring and high impact. So that's the example I given you regarding fire. Fixed assets, getting lost because of the fire. So those audits you can do once in a year. Similarly, high risk, medium impact, you can do once in a year. Medium risk, medium impact, low risk, medium impact. Low risk, medium impact, you may do once in 2 years. There may be some of your stockyards may be there, branches may be there, where the level of operation, the sales may not be at very high level, but there may be a chance of reputation risk or maybe compliance risk. So those things you can cover twice in a year, once in 2 years. There may be high risk, low impact. You can cover it under 18 months and 18 months. And then you may have low risk, low impact areas which may cover once in 3 years. So you list down all your risks which are there, all the auditable items are there. Put it on this particular block, and based on that you prepare your audit plan. This is one of the illustrations. You can find some other model also which are available. Now, once you are given the audit of internal audit of startups, what are the models available to do this internal audits? First is that you can have your own full in-house department. The benefit of that particular model is that you will get in-depth understanding of business operations. But the problem is that there is always recruitment time. So if one person leaves and you want to recruit another person, there may be a time lag of 3 to 4 months, which you may or may not be able to afford. Another issue may be budget and cost. It is very difficult to get all skill sets in a budget. Take an example of a company which is just started up a company, and they have they're leveraging on the IT platform. To recruit a full-time IT auditor may not be feasible for you, because his job may be for 2 months in a year, or you may say 1 week in a month. You are not going to pay him the full year salary to that particular person. So you may not afford that. Now, because these startup companies have a high iteration rate, it is very difficult to retain the manpower. So what is another model? What we call core source model. Compared to model A, it is less expensive, and it can provide specialized skills. So what you can do, you can have your own manpower. Certain things being carried out by your in-house internal audit department. Certain things are outsourced. So you can look for the specialized skills like IT skills. I told you IT audit skills. Those things you can outsource. And the normal financial audits, repetitive audits you can carry out. And you have various flexibility of outsourcing available. So for example, in some startups, if you have a core source, you can have in-house department can do 60% audit, 40% can be outsourced. In some companies, you can see 30% audits are done by in-house team, 70% can be outsourced. It depends upon company to company, industry to industry, and availability of the budget. And here you can marry the knowledge of business, which is coming from the in-house team, with the skill sets required, which comes from the outsource firms. Third model is that you fully outsource the internal audit function. It is very easy to do that. You get hold of some CA firm or maybe a big four, give them the full, outsource the full internal audit department to them. They will come and do all the audits, and they will come and report to audit committees. Here you have a chance to link quality with the cost. You can tell them that, X amount I'm paying you. In turn, I want value addition of this particular amount. And you can have access of expert knowledge in the industry. But remember that whenever these type of firms come and they can do a good audit to you. They may give solutions, but many times those solutions may not be customized to your company. Normally, these companies do benchmarking and they tell you that in this particular company how this particular problem was solved. But it may not be applicable to your company because your company's culture may be different. So that is a major drawback, that you may get internal audits, you may get good audit reports, you may or may not get implementable solutions. So you need to guard against that. Because this company will come, do the audit, give you a paper and go away. So apart from that, it may not solve your day-to-day issues. Suppose, for example, in a day, management comes to know that that they feel that some fraud is happening in a particular area. They cannot tell that tomorrow you go there and do the audit and find out whether this is a fraud or not. Because again, this may not be in their scope. So first you have to find out the firm who can do this audit, negotiate the fees with them, and then they will start the work. But at the meantime, the evidences may get lost. Now remember that I told you these are the companies which have external funding. In that case, there are some tips. I'm just throwing those tips. They normally require that there should be audit committee. Now, whenever this audit committee is there, under auditor is supposed to report to audit committee. Sometimes you may report things to audit committee which may not be liked by the management. You have to do just a balancing act. I just run through this ideas. So first you can circulate your draft report to the process owner, discuss with functional heads, CFO, CEOs, avoid any surprises to top management. If there is a difference of opinion with the management, mention both your opinion and the management opinion in the presentation so that audit committee is aware of both the opinions, and always give sufficient time management in initiating corrective action. It should not happen that today you have done the audit, tomorrow you go to audit committee and report that. If any audit is outsourced, it is good idea to invite those outsourced agency to make the presentation. You ask the relevant process owner to be present in audit committee either through video or in a physical presence. So if any queries is raised by audit committee, they are able to answer that. It is good idea to circulate this final presentation well in the advance so the directors come prepared in the audit committee rather than seeing the audit observation at the last moment, and anticipate the questions which may be raised by audit committee so that you have supporting information available to satisfy them. This is all from my side. Thanks. If you have any questions, I will request Samida to collect that, and whenever it is possible, we can discuss.
Thank you, Mr. Dua.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dua, for a very scintillating and mind-boggling presentation.
Thank you, sir.
In fact, after giving my keynote address, I had to go to some other place to speak at Gurgaon branch. But I came back and I could listen to your words of wisdom in the right stress perspective. So, sir, we'll be coming for the question answer session after the end of the session of the next speaker.
Okay.
So, ladies and gentlemen, Just a minute, sir. If you want to add something, sir, you could add, because I would like to just ask one thing. How do you feel that chartered accountants, particularly small and medium practitioners or young chartered accountants, could add value in the perspective of doing internal audit function for startups? How the business development proposition can be undertaken? With your experience, I wanted to answer this.
Yes, definitely, they can add a lot of value. See, I already told you that normally these startup companies don't have deep pockets or high budgets. So normally they may not be able to recruit the big fours and other things. So here a lot of opportunities available for the small chartered accountant firms to render the services. Only thing you need to keep a track that they need to appraise their knowledge time to time. And most important thing is that they need to get a knowledge about what are the compliances. Internal auditor can get away in startup companies by not doing the proper work, but they will be caught and killed if they fault on the compliance issues. The management is going to come and ask them, this was a compliance issue which was supposed to be reported, why you not reported that? Otherwise, other things easily can be manageable. And whenever a startup company, you work with a startup company, the company grows, you also grow in the knowledge. That is a good opportunity.
So, sir, one question I'll ask you at the end is what are the skill sets you look from SMPs so that they're able to cater to the startups? This I'll ask at the end. Now, I would request Mr. Robin Banerjee, if he's there. Mr. Banerjee, you are there?
Yes, sir. Good evening, sir.
Very good evening, Mr. Banerjee. So, I would request Mr. Banerjee to start his session. At the end, we'll have a question answer session and take the queries of all the members. Thank you. Thank you so much. Please, Mr. Banerjee, with your session. Thank you, Mr. Dua, for your presentation. Great.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for giving opportunity.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Good evening, my dear professional colleagues. It's not easy to be the last speaker. It's not easy for you to listen at 7 p.m. And it's not easy for me to follow the brilliant task of my previous speakers. And my topic is risk. And I would like to approach the problem of risk a little differently. Most of the time, we the CAs could either be auditors or we are employees or CFOs or accountants. So and of course there are CAs, our professional colleagues who are entrepreneurs themselves. Risk. Everyone takes risk, and we all know that if there is no risk, there is no reward. Each one of you who are on this web call have taken the risk of spending time to ensure that hopefully we'll get some more knowledge. And more so, all those who are listening to my web call are taking more risks. Having started early, I'm quite sure you must be thinking that this is a great risk I'm taking and spending time to listen to someone who may or may not add value. And we all know that higher the risk, higher is the reward. I would break my presentation into two parts, essentially speaking. I will tell you some stories. I'll tell you some stories of businesses where risks were taken, and I would leave the judgment to all of you as to whether the risks were worth taking or not. I'm cognizant of the fact that in a situation, in a scenario like this where I'm on web, that means you can see me, I can't see any one of you, which is very unfair risk on my part, because I don't even know whether all of you are sleeping, which is a big risk I have. And it's always good to discuss risk management, strategy, accounting, accountants, audit, when we are face to face. I can see eyes to eyes, and therefore we can clarify each other's questions. My submission to you is I'll tell you some stories now, and please use your chat box to quick answer whether what you feel about these stories, whether risks were worth taking or not. And of course, you can unmute yourself. I don't know whether the organizers do allow you to unmute and speak. Perhaps if you can, then that'd be lovely. So the whole objective is we can stay awake at 7 p.m. in the evening. So one, I'll tell you some stories. The second, I'll give you some ammunition. I'll give you some ammunition as to how to manage risks. Now, when I'm not going to give you a gyan of risk management, because many of us, all CAs or accountants who are on this call, risk management can be one of the professional endeavors we can have. You can offer as a consultant that I'm risk management professional. And therefore, if you have to give advice to your client on risk management, what is it that you should do? So I'll give you some quick food for thoughts, and hopefully you shall be able to manage the risk of your client better, of course, of yourself, sure. So I'll tell you some stories, and not necessarily in order of, let's say, importance, but stories where some risks were taken, and I would request all of you accountants to explain to me, hopefully quickly, as to whether they should have taken the risk. I hope all of you can hear me, because that's the biggest impediment in a web like this, that the speaker cannot be heard. If someone can just say yes or put a chat, they're saying that you can all hear me, then that would be nice. Okay, there is no chat answer. Hopefully you can hear me. My first story which I'm going to talk to you about is about a company called Netflix. All of you are aware of Netflix. Netflix is now the hot topic post-lockdown. When the world shut down almost on third week of March, everyone went to Netflix, which means sitting at home and watching lovely movies. So Netflix, every one of us are aware, or of course most of you are aware. So when this lockdown happened in around March, as you know, Europe happened a little earlier, China happened in December last year, and India is one of the later countries where this virus hit us. Netflix was deep in debt. They had a $12 billion debt, $12 billion. 1 billion, as you know, is 7,000 crores. Actually 7,500 crores, depending upon which day you are trying to convert the foreign exchange. So Netflix was in deep debt, not doing well. It's a $15 billion company sitting on a $12 billion debt, actually $12.5 billion debt. And when the lockdown got announced, suddenly the company realized that everyone started watching the television in their homes. There is huge demand, but they don't have good product. People are moving over to other channels like Disney, for instance, and Amazon. And that OTT platform, as you all know, became more popular, and people were going away from Netflix. The management and the board quickly decided that the only way to do that is to raise more debt. And it was already in debt, as you know, $12 billion with a $15 billion sales. And they decided that they would issue a junk bond. As you know, a junk bond, a bond which is rated less than BBB, and Netflix was rated BB. So it is not AAA, AA, single A, not BBB, but it was a non-investable grade bond. And they decided to issue a $2 billion junk bond. Just imagine, ladies and gentlemen who are on this call, that Netflix, so-called market leader, deep in debt, decided to take more debt, to go into more deep in debt, and the objective was that they did not have good content. They did not have content to attract people who are now locked down at home, so that they can watch Netflix. They took the debt, by the way. I will tell you the answer as to what happened thereafter. The question here is that in a situation like this, did the management take the correct risk step? Was it the right step for the company to take more debt when they're deep in debt already? They are sub-investmentable grade rating company. They are not even BBB rated, they're BB rated, almost at the verge of bankruptcy, almost, as you know, double B, single B is on the verge of bankruptcy, and they take more debt. Could the company would have done something else? And did the company take the right risk? That was my first story. Maybe if some of you can answer whether the company took the right risk or not, that would be nice. Is this that there is? I can see the chats if somebody's typing it, or we the chartered accountants don't type, don't do chats. Can someone from the organizer tell me that the chat box works? Nanda Saab, can you tell me, is the chat box working? Or Sumedha? There is no noise from the other side. Can someone send some message just to say that you can hear me at least?
Yes, sir, you are audible.
Okay. So do you think the participants can send a message? Is it feasible if they want to? Maybe they don't want to. That's another matter altogether.
No, sir, that's not possible.
Oh, they can't send a chat. Okay,
No,
they
sir.
can't send a message. Can they speak? Even that is not possible?
No, sir.
Okay, so it's one-way traffic. Okay,
Yes.
Unfortunate. Okay, then maybe I should have structured this talk a little differently, but now that that's the way it is, let me go through and without asking questions. So the first story which I told you is about Netflix. The second story I want to tell you is about another company which took great risk. I'm not too sure how many of you have visited Singapore of late. Singapore, as you know, is a fun city. Singapore, Hong Kong, people go there to have fun and, of course, to do a lot of shopping. Singapore, Hong Kong, Dubai, these are the fun cities of the world. I'm not talking about, of course, Las Vegas. That's too far away. Nearer home is Singapore and Hong Kong and Dubai. So Singapore is a fun city, and there is a beautiful beach called the Marinas. If you have gone to Singapore after 2010, maybe in the last 10 years, whoever has gone, you may have seen a wonderful, perhaps the most exotic hotel called the Marina Bay Sands Hotel. Maybe you would have seen. If you are at home, you can quickly Google on your mobile, on your smartphone, Marina Bay Sands, Marina, Bay, B-A-Y, Sands, S-A-N-D-S, Marina Bay Sands. That's a hotel. You can see 3 columns, 3 hotels standing side by side. It's one of the most exotic and the most expensive hotels in the world. So they came out in 2010, spent about $2.5–3 billion, and put up a hotel. Come 2013, 2014, the management decided that they want to make the hotel a green hotel. They decided to make the hotel a green hotel. Please try to understand that people used to go to Marina Bay to have fun. Singapore is a sin city. People go there to drink, to have fun, to have beautiful, brilliant food, and anything which is vice, of course, play casinos. It's a vice place. It's a sin place. And in the sin place, the vice place, they constructed the most expensive hotel, perhaps in the world, and they said, we want to convert that into green. Just imagine a sin city converting a hotel into green. Now, if they would have converted and made the hotel green from day one, that was another matter. But what they did is, they did not do on day one, they did it after 3 years. Obviously, that involved millions of dollars to be spent. So there were plastics that had to be converted into non-plastics, whatever they needed, the medium of material needed to be recyclable. So they started spending money in making Marina Bay Sands a green hotel. So far, so good. But in a hotel like that, the place where hotels make money is not when people stay. The places like this, they make money either in the casino or in the restaurants. Restaurants is where they make a lot of money. So because it's a green hotel, what they decided is that any fish, as you know, it's a non-vegetarian place. So all those who are vegetarian, please bear me out. But that's how it's an experience or example. So what they did is they had the hotel is to serve very expensive fish like shark fin, which is an aphrodisiac. A cost would be $10 perhaps, and they would sell it for $50, and that's where they were making money. But these species of fish were being caught in non-green fashion. That means they were harmful, they were painful to the fish or to the animals. They discontinued serving meat and fish which was not being caught and produced under green condition. They gave up those dishes. In fact, bluefin tuna is another product which they used to serve, and tuna and shark, as you know, catching is essentially very cruel, and it's not green in nature, so they did away with that. So essentially what happened is, ladies and gentlemen, the story is like this, or that's what they did. It's not a story, it's a fact, that it was a hotel spent billions of dollars in a sin city, and they converted that hotel into a green hotel, giving up revenue facilities, revenue opportunities. Now my question here is, did the management do the right thing? Did they take the right decision in taking the risk in investing another few millions of dollars to convert a sin hotel into a green hotel? And it's a classical example of case there where maybe somebody has thought that this is the right thing to do and, and spend some more money. And the question is why they couldn't do it earlier. So till now, I have told it would have been nice if we would have exchanged each other's views at this juncture, because some of you must be having a view already as to whether they did the right thing or not. So Netflix, they were already almost broke. They took more debt. Was it the right risk to take? Marina Bay Sands, it was a hotel spending billions of dollars on a sin city, and yet they took risk of investing more money to make it green. And do you think that people are going to spend more money in a sin city, who is where people are coming to have fun, and spend more money? You know, what has happened is they had to upgrade the hotel cost from a $200 to maybe $250, $275 because they had to recover the cost. And is it the right risk to take that you expect people to come to a sin city and spend more money just because it's green? So is it the right risk to take? I'll give you another example, another story nearer home. I'm not too sure whether some of you belong to the Tata Group. As you know, Starbucks came into India about 10 years back, and they tied up with Tatas and converted, and not converted, had Starbucks coffee at most of the high cities, high places. And in high street places, Starbucks started opening up. And Starbucks was, of course, straight competing with Cafe Coffee Day. That was also a coffee joint at that point in time. But if Cafe Coffee Day was serving coffee for 40 rupees, Starbucks was serving for 140 rupees, just to give you an example. 3 times more expensive. Of course, the environment was better. Then there were other coffee shops or coffee restaurants at that point of time. Coffee Beans, for instance, many of you would have gone there. So there were 2 or 3 others. Starbucks started, as I told you, very expensive, top-of-the-line restaurants, made the coffee 3 to 4 times more expensive than their nearest competitor, and continued to do business till now. I don't know how many of you have ever thought about it, that does Starbucks make money? Sorry. Does Starbucks make money by selling coffee at 3 to 4 times more expensive than your nearest shop, nearest competitor? And did Starbucks, which is the largest coffee selling company or restaurant in the world, took the right risk in coming into India, priced the coffee higher, and take very expensive places. And more importantly, the biggest risk Starbucks took is they tied up with Tatas. Please understand, Tatas themselves were a coffee seller, and a tea seller. They were marketeers of Tata tea and coffee, Tata Tea and Tata Tetley, as you know. This global company ties up with their biggest competitor and thinks and feels that Starbucks will make money. Another big risk they took. Was it the right thing for them to do? So that is my third story. It's difficult to tell stories at a distance like this, but yes. So I told you 3 stories, and I'm not too sure as to what your views are. Netflix, Marina Bay. Netflix, of course, all of us know, OTT platform. Marina Bay Sands Hotel. It's a hotel in Singapore, and I told you it was Starbucks in India. And I'll tell you the answers as much as I can, because you all cannot speak to me. The fourth story, if I say, is all of you are aware, and being accountants, I'm quite sure you're aware, many of you may have been involved in that, is the ILFS episode. ILFS, as you know, is an NBFC. It had a 90,000 crores balance sheet size, and it has gone bankrupt in 2018. Nobody ever thought that ILFS can go bankrupt. Very high profile, Mumbai headquartered NBFC. They were mainly in existence for providing funding to the infrastructure sector, bridges and roads and airports and so on, so infrastructure sector, canals, rivers. Now, what happened in ILFS? What was the business model in ILFS? The business model in ILFS, and I'm not getting into all the accounting issues ILFS had. As you know, the CEO of Deloitte, who was an auditor, has been banned for 5 years and have been fined 15 lakh rupees by NFRA, National Financial Reporting Authority, because NFRA found it appropriate to say that the auditor did not do the correct job, and they misrepresented facts. In fact, they had negative net worth, and they showed it as a positive capital in hand. So obviously, after the Grant Thornton forensic audit, it seems that there were a lot of holes which perhaps auditors could have pointed out and should not have gone with the management. But having said that, we are discussing risk. We are not discussing forensic as of now. In terms of risk, what the company did and what happened to them is, typically an NBFC borrows in the short-term market. So ILFS will borrow from banks for, let's say, 6 months, 8 months, 9 months. But please understand, the business of ILFS is to lend to the infrastructure sector. And the infrastructure sector obviously means that the loans are more than 3, 4, 5 years, because there is a gestation period. The money cannot come back in 4, 5 years. So can you imagine that if you are the risk manager or if you are the auditor in question, the first thought which will come to your mind is that is this company not borrowing short and lending long? Is the company not doing that? Borrowing short, lending long. You borrow for 6 months, hoping that you will be able to renew the short-term borrowing again, so that when the money comes after 3, 4 years, you can keep funding them. What if the lenders don't renew? And that is precisely what has happened. When in 2018 middle, when the lenders realize that there is some problem with ILFS, everything doesn't look to be all okay, they say, nothing doing, we do not want to lend you. And the answer, the story is that the company went bankrupt. So it's a classical case of risk management not in existence. In fact, they had a very high-profile board. They had a board committee of risk management, and what we understand from the Grant Thornton forensic audit report, the risk management committee never met for 2 years. And that's the primary job of an NBFC or a bank, to assess risks, and they never met. And see what has happened? The rest is history. So that was a story of ILFS. So I've told you 4 stories so far. Netflix, Marina Bay Sands, Starbucks in India, Starbucks Coffee in India, and ILFS. Maybe I'll tell you the last one. And there are many more. There are hundreds and thousands of stories, one can say, of risks which businesses take, and many a times it seems that they did not look at the obvious. When you look at the hindsight, you find they did not look at the obvious. The next story, which again all of you would know, is well known in the market, and all of you are aware, is a Kingfisher story. Mr. Vijay Mallya built the finest airlines in 2007, 2008, 2009. If you recollect, that if you wanted to fly, and if your secretary or if your client gave you an option that which airlines would you fly, you would have definitely chosen Kingfisher. Larger seat, more leg space, better food, better looking air hostesses, everything. Better aircraft, everything was better, no question. And just imagine Mr. Vijay Mallya built the finest airlines only to take it to bankruptcy. Have you thought of as to why you build the best business and it goes into bankruptcy? 2008, 2009, 2007, 2008, 2009. Kingfisher was awarded the best airlines consistently. And you know what happened? 2012, June, the last aircraft flew. Thereafter, in fact, it became bankrupt in 2011. Somehow they continued to fly some airlines, some flights. And June 2012, the last flight took off. It's a food for thought as to how an organization, a company, again, it had excellent board, great management team. I'm not talking about skills because I don't know whether they had the skills, but obviously big names, and it became bankrupt. And lest is history now today, the government of India is after Mr. Vijay Mallya as to how he can be brought to India and put him behind bars. He has taken 7,500 crores with 1,500 crore interest. 9,000 crore is what he owes to the banking system. I don't know even anything close to that the banking system will ever recover. Now, what is the risk? What risk did Mr. Vijay Mallya take? Mr. Vijay Mallya, the basic risk was that Mr. Mallya's airlines was flying neck to neck with SpiceJet, neck to neck with Indigo. By the way, Indigo and Kingfisher started in the same year, 2002. In 2012, when Kingfisher went bankrupt, in 2012, Indigo declared the highest profit. Very strange. Highest growth and highest profit. You can Google it and you will find it yourself. Just imagine, they were together, started the business at the same time. One goes bankrupt and other makes highest profit. So food for thought as to what went wrong with Mr. Mallya. One of the single issue which went wrong with Mr. Mallya was that he spent money and spent hundreds of crores, not thousands of crores, hundreds of crores behind the facilities in an aircraft which the customers were not paying for. If you recollect in 2008, 2009, if you boarded an Kingfisher Airlines, you were also given a gift. If you boarded an Indigo, no gift. If you boarded a SpiceJet, no gift. Of course, Air India, Indian Airlines, no gift for sure. But in Kingfisher, you got a gift. If you were in the airport, there will be a usher who will come and help you with the trolley. Now, everything costs money. So Mr. Mallya thought that if I can upgrade my facilities, customers will start paying, but customer never paid for it. In a sense that they did not do the risk management to think that if I spend money, are the customers prepared to pay for it? Why should you do something when the customers are not prepared for it? It is called over-specification of your offerings. If you over-specify, if you give, a customer wants to pay, let's say, for a stainless steel knife, no point in giving him, just because you want to give a better service, a knife made of silver. Doesn't work. If it is stainless steel knife, you have to give a stainless steel knife. That's all, not a silver knife. Doesn't work. That, of course, is common sense. But just imagine in Kingfisher Airlines didn't work, and rest is history. I can go on and on because there are so many stories of how risk management went wrong. But I must give you the answer for the Netflix and Marina Bay Sands. In all the stories of risk management, what is important is to understand that is the company taking risk for better customer service or not? If it is improving the customer service and customer satisfaction, contrary to the belief, all our chartered accountants in our books, we would never have read about this. We talk about risks in terms of financial terms, but in business, risk, financial of course, but does it mean a better for the customers? Marina Bay Sands started losing money because customers were not willing to pay. They were over-specifying. They came for fun. They were not willing to pay for a green hotel. Starbucks India or Starbucks in India was not paying. The customers were not paying for 3 times or 4 times for the coffee just because the environment was better. Just for your information, starting in 2010, Starbucks is yet to make profit. It incurs losses every year. In 2019, they declared from 2020 we will start earning profits, but you know what happened in 2020? They bled more because everything's closed because of COVID. ILFS, of course, it was a fraudulent structure. Kingfisher did something which was the customer was not ready to pay for it. The only of these 5 stories, the Netflix story, which looks to be the worst of the card because they were deep in debt and yet they took more debt. Ladies and gentlemen, that worked. If they would have not got another $2 billion debt, the company would not have been able to upgrade their offerings. What they did basically of the $2 billion, they bought other smaller companies which had great offerings. And overnight in April, May, they enhanced their quality of their offerings. And people were all hooked onto Netflix, and Netflix started making money. Again, customer was the key. They thought of the customer, and in order to get the customer satisfaction right, Netflix risk was worth taking. Marina Bay Sands never worked. Starbucks India hasn't worked so far. ILFS didn't work. And of course, Kingfisher didn't work. All of them took risks which were not worth taking. Netflix, as of now, it has worked. We don't know what will happen tomorrow, but in November, sitting on, let's say, 10th of November or 11th of November, it seems it's working. So these were the stories I wanted to share with you. I did mention to you that I will take you through 2 parts of my presentation. One part of the presentation is some stories of risks, and maybe some of you or all of you would have interpreted this in a particular manner. Each one of you have experiences more than me, and you would have seen risks much in a different light. Maybe these 5 stories are food for thought for you as to how you should do things differently, or maybe you are doing the right thing. I wish we could have had an exchange of thoughts of 4, 5, 7 minutes so that our clarifications could have been answered. I now go, ladies and gentlemen, to my second part. If you remember that I had explained to you that I will give you some the ways how to do risk management. If you remember, I told you about that, how to do risk management, and I'll give you some options to remember how risk management is to be handled. If you ever study risk management, you have to read thick books, very thick books you have to read on risk management. What does it all contain? And what I'm going to tell you in maybe next 7 to 8 minutes is all that contains in a big thick book. There are several options for risk management, ladies and gentlemen. And if you attack the way these options I'm going to press to you, chances are that you would have tackled most of the risks which faces you and me in our business life. The first option when there is risk management is mitigation of risk. Mitigation means reduction of risk. Means of course, you will have to evaluate that there is risk or not. And the moment there is risk, you take steps to mitigate it. In business, one of the way by which you can mitigate or reduce risk is, let us assume that you have a manufacturing factory. Let's say you're a restaurant. It's simple. You have a restaurant. And the restaurant, the biggest risk is the chef runs away. What happens if the chef runs away? If the chef runs away, your business is all gone. And if that is the risk, chef running away is a risk. Chef being poached by your competitor is a risk. Mitigate it. Train your deputy chef. In restaurant parlance, it is called sous chef, as if he or she is a chef. Have a fallback option. So that's way of reducing the risk, mitigating risk. Another way of risk which happens in an organization is quality rejections. You produce a product. Let's say you are a stainless steel manufacturer and you produce and sell stainless steel. But you find that there are a lot of rejections. Customer keeps saying, this stainless steel is not a good quality. There is some problem. Therefore, the mitigating risk is have better quality control. You have better tests or specifications. There are so many ways by which you can reduce the risk. We can go on, but these are the one is the first option is to mitigate the risk. If you have a piece of paper and pen, maybe you may like to write the word mitigation. And in a few minutes' time, the story will come out very clearly in front of you. The second method by which you can handle risk, first one is reduce the risk, mitigation. The second one is elimination. Eliminate the risk, avoid the risk, eliminate completely. Let's say that you have a factory, you want to go and open a second factory. But in the first factory, you're not happy with the technology which you have. When you go and start your second factory, you eliminate the risk by not getting the same technology as which you were using in the first. Very classical case. You have a machinery and the machinery didn't work, you do not buy the next time. Let's say the mobile phone you have. You have a mobile phone and you don't like it and you need to upgrade the phone, buy another phone. You eliminate the risk by not buying the make the first time or the last time you had. So you eliminate the risk. Let's say you want to expand and go international. One of the options of Indian entrepreneurs go international is to go to Bangladesh or Myanmar. But you suddenly find that there's a lot of political uncertainty in this country. So eliminate, don't go into the country where there is political uncertainty. Another elimination of the risk is you started investing in a project or something, and midway or 10% way or whatever, you find that there is something going wrong. You don't continue to invest. Eliminate it. Stop the project. Eliminate the risk. Don't invest further. So the first one is mitigate, which is reduction. The second is avoidance, which is elimination. Mitigation, elimination. The third option which you have, which you can do in risk management, is accept the risk. Acceptance. Do nothing. The risk is fine. For instance, all of you must have invested in share market. All of you would be investing in mutual funds. And share market upar jata hai, niche aata hai, but you said it's fine. It's fine. I accept that it will go up and come down, and you will do nothing. You will say, I have a portfolio, 80% of portfolio is in equity shares, 10% mutual fund, 10% in whatever debt may be, and you accept the risk. As I told you, no risk, no gain. So therefore, you have to accept some risk. Therefore, you say, if I don't accept any risk, how do I make money? So some risk I need to accept. So you mitigate, eliminate, accept. And the fourth most important one is transfer. Transfer the risk. Let's say that you want to invest in an equipment, and the equipment costs, let's say, 10 crores or 100 crores. You want to transfer the risk. So instead of investing 10 crores or 100 crores, you take the machinery or equipment on lease. You take it on lease. You start using it, but you don't pay that 10 or 100 crores. You just pay the lease rental. What have you done? You have transferred the risk from yourself to that of the vendor. If the investment doesn't work in 2 or 3 years, the only thing you have lost is the lease rentals, and you can return the equipment again. So you have transferred the risk. Another common way of doing you transfer the risk is to get from the machine manufacturer a performance guarantee. Or let's say you invest in solar energy. Your company says go into solar energy or wind energy. You invest crores of rupees, but what if the power doesn't get produced? What if the wind doesn't blow? What if the sun comes out, of course, but that equipment, the solar cells are not producing power which you want. So you transfer the risk by taking performance guarantee from the supplier or the vendor. So transfer the risk. So the first 4 concept is M, which is mitigation, E, which is elimination, A, which is accept, and T is transfer. Ladies and gentlemen, it forms into an acronym called MEAT, M-E-A-T. Remember this MEAT, M-E-A-T. Mitigation, elimination, acceptance, and transfer. I wish we could have had a discussion now and ask questions as to do you understand what I'm saying, but unfortunately we are not able to do that. And there are 4 more. So, you have to read big books. Naturally, you have to read big books. So books just can't have 4, so there must be some more. So there are 4 more steps which you can, if you do MEAT, my dear friends, chances are that you would have handled 80, 85, 90% of the risk, but still there is 10%. And can we be 100% sure? Yes, you can. The next one is you do contingency planning. Planning. P. Contingency planning. Contingency planning is a great way to mitigate risk. Let's say there is a risk in your factory of fire. Aag lag sakta hai, because let's say you have an open boiler or an open furnace, and therefore there is a possibility there's open fire and it can catch fire. Apart from taking an insurance, that's another matter. What you can do, you can have contingency planning by having trained people on firefighting. Training in firefighting. Give all your employees training on firefighting. A great way of contingency planning is to, let's say, in the night, there is an accident in the factory and somebody needs to be rushed. The contingency planning is keep a list of all the telephone numbers, including doctors, who can be called if there is an emergency. Contingency planning. You can go on and on. Let's say there is a labor dispute going on in the factory and something wrong might happen which can affect your goodwill. Keep a press release ready that should something happen, you are able to go to the press and say, this is what has happened, this is the real story. Contingency planning. So, the 5th one is planning. Contingency planning, if I may say. The next one, very contrary to what you will think, risk is all about reduction, reduction, reduction. That's not true. The next one is increase the risk. Instead of reducing the risk, you increase the risk. You increase the risk. For instance, all of you are chartered accountants. When you give advice to your clients as to where should they invest, sometimes don't we say that why don't you invest in gold, 5% or 10%? But investing in gold is it is risky. Who knows what the gold price would be? Nobody knows. Gold has no value anyway. It has no utility, but still gold has value because somebody accepts it. And then you will say, you know what? 10% of your portfolio, it is worthwhile increasing the risk. Invest in gold. So sometimes we do invest No, sometimes we do increase the risk because it is worthwhile taking the risk. A classical case where risk is enhanced is in the power business. In the energy business, the countries and the companies puts up a nuclear power plant. Nuclear power plant is so risky. If any leakage has taken place, hundreds and thousands and lakhs of people can die. It can kill the company forever. Kill the company forever. Yet, companies they increase the risk by putting up nuclear power because they say that there is so much of safety, so much of rules and regulations, nothing will go wrong. So it's okay. We can increase the risk. So contingency planning, increase in risk. So I said planning, P, increasing I. I'm working towards another acronym. The third one is risk reserve. There is a risk, you create a risk reserve. Very simple. Very simple. Whenever you do a budget or a capital expenditure budget, let's say you think that I'm putting up a factory, I have to spend 10 crores. But you never know 10 crores or not. So what you do, you put a contingency of 1 crore, 10%. That is risk reserve. So there is a risk of overspending and you add a contingency which is called risk reserve. Having cash in your balance sheet, you are doing whatever you are doing, keep all the time, let's say 10 lakhs, 50 lakhs, 30 lakhs, whichever organization you audit or work for, I'm sure they keep a minimum cash balance. What is that? Contingency reserve. Against risk. If something goes wrong, I have money in my bank. All of us, each one of us on this call, must be having some cash in our home. Why? Risk reserve. You think if something goes wrong, I can go and buy something and then that's it. Irrespective whether you have a credit card in your wallet or not. We all keep some cash in our hand. Risk reserve. Risk reserve could also be, you see that there is extra demand. Let's say Diwali time, now Diwali time is going on. And you have already told that, Diwali time people go and buy. So you have told your employees, you know what? During Diwali, we will work till 10 p.m. in the night. We work 3 shifts. We'll work on Sundays. We'll work on Saturdays. Risk reserve. You are planning for keep working more. So, contingency planning, increase the risk reserve, PIR. And the last one is obvious. How can there be a risk management or risk mitigation plan or risk management talk unless you discuss insurance? The last one is insurance. Insure the risk. Any risk which is insurable, you need to insure. Act of God, you can insure. So it reduces the risk immediately. So if the first one was MEAT, if you remember, the last 4 words was PIRI, P-I-R-I. That's the acronym which you should remember. Contingency planning for P, increased risk is for I, risk reserve is for the R, and insurance is for I. So MEAT and PIRI, if you follow, chances are that you will be able to advise and control risks almost in entirety. Most of the risk action will fall into MEAT itself, which is mitigation, elimination, acceptance, and transfer. And if something is left, of course, something is left, then you can do PIRI. And of course, the last one is insurance. So obviously, some insurance, if you take, you do reduce the risk to a large extent. So, ladies and gentlemen, we have not been able to speak to each other. I wish we could, because I told you some stories of 5 stories, all involving risks. I gave you some options as to how perhaps we should be able to advise people, your clients and your employer, as to how to handle risk. It's 7:45 now, and thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Very happy to take questions. Thank you.
हेलो।
अरे नहीं, अभी घंटी आ रही है।
Sir.
Yeah. Chairman has come.
So, could we start the question answer session, please? Am I audible?
Yeah, you're audible, Chairman. You're audible, Chairman.
Very good.
Yeah.
Very good.
Now, presentation is over.
My first question to all.
Yeah.
Great, sir, great. My first question to all three of you is that what are the skill sets you feel is needed by SMPs to excel in the areas where you have outlined? I had asked Mr. Harish Dua at that time. So, Madam Geeta and Mr. Robin, what are the skill sets and technology bias you need in CA firms so that they are able to qualify to serve the respective clients as outlined by you? Please, sir. We can start with Madam Geeta and then Dua Sam and then Robin. Yes, Madam.
Yes, I think I have briefly maybe mentioned in the presentation. One is, as I said, when you're looking at large corporates, there will definitely be, you'll be having these IT packages of maybe it could be any application of SAP or it could be Oracle or there are so many other new ones. So knowledge of that, or at least being able to tie up with somebody from whom you can use that knowledge, that will be required. Presentation skills are definitely very important. And I had also said that in case you're trying to offer a bouquet of services, then you need to have that kind of exposure and or you identify your niche. As sometimes in IT audits and all, it is very difficult, and most of the time companies then end up going to large, to the big four because of their tools and so on. So if you want to identify your niche, you can either go for these IT audits, or it could be, as I said, GST audit, or it could be maybe some treasury audit or some niche like that. Or you should be prepared to offer. You have to decide. I think that clarity is required on what you want, what you want to offer. So and updation, training and knowledge updation. That of course goes is a given. So these are some of the things that comes to me top of my mind. Maybe Mr. Robin can also add. Sir, if you would like to add something to this.
Sure, madam, sure. Dua sir.
For me, there are two important skills which are required. Other skills are manageable. So one is understanding of the business. This is the most important skills are required. Now, what happened that it may not be possible for the new CA firms and small CA firms to have business understanding. But if they take any assignment, if they go in any company, first try to learn the business, how the business is being done. Then comes process understanding, and the last thing is communication skills. So if these things are there, other things, other knowledge and other thing you can get through internet, you can get through, by again outsourcing to somebody else, co-sourcing or what we call subcontracting or something like that. You can take some help from the paid consultant. But if you don't have on your own business understanding and process understanding, it will be very difficult to survive.
I think about the business understanding part, I had also mentioned in my PPT that the knowledge of business is extremely important. That anyway, I had also mentioned that.
Yeah.
I think we can move on, I guess.
Okay, my view on this is, all of you, Geeta and Harish rightly mentioned, my view is that we need to provide, as chartered accountants, a 360-degree solution for our clients. 360 degrees means holistic solution, and that's what I believe many of us are lacking, or in providing this service to our clients. 360 not only includes finance or accounting, I also mean purchasing, marketing, selling, HR, law, taxation. Of course, taxation, accounting, costing, and finance is something which we can do, but it is the other aspects which we need to start providing. We all need to be mini McKinseys. That, to my mind, will be singular way by which we can distinguish ourselves from the crowd and from other professional competitors.
I think the chairman, some network issue is there. We're just waiting for him to rejoin.
Yes, sir. Mr. Prasanna, I may not be able to do the video, but I'll come with the last question.
Yeah,
And then you can go with the concluding.
Okay,
The last
fine.
question is, sir, the role of internal auditors is rapidly from the assurance to consulting. The internal auditor is expected to identify risk and suggest the mitigating factors to the management. Whether this situation is diluting the independence of internal audit, and is he forced to get into more answer this, and then we can go for the concluding remarks. It's already 8 now. Please. Madam Geeta, you can start.
Okay. So if I understood your question right, you are saying that since they are
I'll again repeat the question.
Sure.
The question is, the role of internal auditors is rapidly changing from the assurance to consulting, where internal audit is expected to identify risks and suggest the mitigating factors to the management. Whether this situation is diluting the independence of internal audit, and is he forced to get into more operational matters? The question. Please carry on.
Yeah, no, I don't think so, because today we are anyway risk-based audits is the norm of the day, and people just don't want those kind of small issues or giving suggestions which is like over the top or in the air without understanding the business. So I feel that, and I was telling you, I think in my presentation, that we have definitely come a long way. Earlier it used to be, as I said, no, if there's, I'm just giving a very simple example, TD is not deducted or something, recommendation would be TD should be deducted. That doesn't help anybody. That goes without saying. It is implied. So one definitely also needs to go a little in depth. If you really need to take this profession to a next level, and if you really need to be taken seriously, which is why we are being told that internal auditors are also somewhere like business partners. So as long as you are sticking to your audit and your recommendations are such, that it's really going to help the business in improving the processes, and you are not involved in doing up the process, I think that independence is still would be maintained. So that is definitely required. Operations, I don't know, once you are into internal audit, sometimes it happens that when you are an in-house team, especially, there are sometimes you are called upon, let's say in participating in when an SOP is being drawn, or it is your suggestions on control gaps are taken. But as long as you are just giving some suggestions and you're not fully involved or signing off, that I don't think we are compromising on independence. And as far as recommendations, as I already said, I think we have to do risk-based audit, and we have to give implementable and value-added suggestions. Only then it is really going to help the business. Otherwise, we won't be really actually adding any meaning or adding any value. What I feel.
So, see, Harish, yeah.
Yes. I agree with the views which Geeta Madam has given. It's so simple. I'll just give one example that, I was recruited by a company, and I was reporting to the promoter. So once I went with the report to the promoter and told him these are the 10 problems which I, found out in the company which needs to be addressed. He told me sit there. He offered me a cup of tea and he told me 30 more problems. So he says that you are telling me 10 problems. I had no 30 problems. But you are not recruited to tell me the problems. You are recruited to tell me what are the solutions. Nobody will recruit you for just problems. So that's the point. If you don't, that's what I was saying, that the most important skill of an internal auditor is business understanding. If you have business understanding, then only you are able to provide any solution. Whether it's assurance related, whether it's a consultancy related, it doesn't matter. It should be for the betterment of the company, and that's the role of internal auditor. So I don't think there's any compromise if any internal auditor is going into for the value, providing value to the company, or giving consultancy services. In fact, I take a pride in my company. Even my boss takes pride in a company. He says that my internal audit is expense free. Whatever expenses are incurred on internal audit, they give me 3 times return of that. So for me, my internal audit is free.
It is not free. It is generating revenue, boss.
Profit center, almost like a profit center.
It's like a profit center, correct?
Yes, it's a profit center. Truly a profit center. Great.
Robin Banerjee.
Yeah, I completely agree. All of us exist to add value. If we don't add value, we don't exist. This independence and non-independent, these are just simple terms which doesn't exist in business life. We need to add value, and as long as we are adding value, we exist. So as Harish Bhai is saying that he's actually a profit center, I would love to have him as our internal auditor. So is Geeta Madam saying. This is exactly what we are looking for. So independence, non-independence, I think these are terms which are no longer relevant. What is important is, can we add value and add to the bottom line to the organization? Then we are definitely doing what we are supposed to do.
Thank you, sir. CS Nanda, Chairman.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
So, Brother Prasanna, you can please go for your concluding remarks. We are running now you have to give the concluding remarks and formal vote of thanks, sir. Please go ahead.
Yeah. CS Nanda, Chairman of Internal Audit Standards Board, and the excellent speakers of today's session, Geeta Ramnath, CA Harish, CA Robin Banerjee, and my dear viewers and participants. Good evening to all of you. It has been a very nice session today. So, which has gone, I felt the way the entire session has gone, I think probably is not only meant for the chartered accountants who are the internal auditors. I think the auditee also should have been present here. Even the companies, the entrepreneurs, they should have been present here. They should have derived a lot of benefit out of these deliberations. CA Geeta ma'am, she has dealt with the handholding of SMPs in effective conduct of internal audit in large corporates. So nicely, so lucidly she presented that, because I could not hear her fully. Somehow I was held up with some other meeting. I partly heard her. It was an excellent presentation, and the way in which she has given the concluding remark, stated as a profit center, is an excellent thing. I think we are going to use this term profit center in all our future meetings also. In be it internal audit department or internal auditor person, external auditor also is a good thing, madam. That's all the depth that you have. Thank you, madam, for the very nice presentation that you made today, madam.
Thank you for having me on. My pleasure entirely.
Thank you, madam. So, that's C. Harish Dovaji. He spoke nicely on internal audit for startup environment. So, normally, internal audit, we feel that is only for large corporates or complex entities. A normal, startup units or, those who do not have complexities involved in the business, there's a general feeling that we don't need any internal audit. But he has brought it so nicely that, even if a startup company or with or without complexities, there's a need for internal audit. There's certain value addition given to the internal auditor. That is the reason he said, it's well said that normally an auditor means he gives a report. He doesn't give a solution. But internal audit is different, that he gives a report, he points out the mistakes, he points the irregularities, and advise the management how to regulate the irregularities also. That's the greatest, very nicely he has put it. Sir, thank you very much, sir, for the excellent presentation you made. Harish Dovaji, thank you. So, coming to risk response strategy is a very good topic. And Robin Banerjee, he has taken a 360-degree view. Very simple terms he said. So what is the risk? How to mitigate the risk? There are certain things which you never heard. I heard so many meetings. So he has nicely put certain terminologies which has straight away gone into your mind. And I think being a managing director of a company and he's an auditee and auditor, so both the sides he knows it. And by his excellent presentation today, he has given a global touch. His accent, everything, is given a global touch to the entire meeting. So you have done a very good job, and all of you have given a value addition to the session. All of us, the participants, are well benefited by giving value addition for the time that you have spent and who has spent here. And in turn, and encouraging our profession to give value addition to the management who appoints as the internal auditors. Thank you very much, sir. Thanks a lot. We look forward to be having many more meetings of this kind with you. Serving the alma mater is a blessing in disguise, blessing for all of us. When we are talking to our own professionals, sharing our knowledge, it gives immense pleasure. That's what we derive. I'm sure you three have contributed a lot today. The alma mater's blessings will be always there with you. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for inviting us.
Thank you,
Thank you, sir.
all the worthy speakers. It has been really a great session, and we'll again network in future to hold more such sessions in times to come. Thank you, sir.
Thank
Bye
you.
bye.
Thank
Yes,
you.
surely.
And thanks
you.
to our participants. Thank you all.